There we go. If you get on that side over, you won't be.
Like move back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that, because I don't want to be in there. Not till it's my turn.
Alright, we got some thumbs up coming in. Loose gun. What is? Yeah, we got some. Alrighty.
Yeah, good view.
Oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect view. That's actually that's a perfect view. Just try not to stand in front of the thing as much as possible. So, hey, Miss Bell.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, good. How you been?
Good.
All right, cool beans. All right, hey guys, GT, we're hot here at this seminar. We're going to kick this off, our first one going on, and more people will probably start to trickle in as they trickle in. I will not be able to get to the comments as quick as possible. However, when the other ones are up here, I will try to address the comments as I can, and hopefully you guys can hear me pretty good. So we're going to get fired up here. We'll do some quick introductions right quick. So quick disclaimer, we, GT's not attorneys, all advice. The information should not be taken as legal advice. If you would like legal advice, please consult a licensed attorney for public awareness and educational purposes. All right, myself, I do GT News Now, Georgia Transparency, hold government accountable, and expose police misconduct. Mr. Robert Reus, he'll be one of the guys given another block of instruction. He's a criminal investigator, retired law enforcement, private investigator, and likes long walks on the beach. And Miss Julia Pierce with Plumline Productions, a paralegal. Be covering extensively the Georgia Open Records Act. She does legal research and government accountability and oversight. Who you are, or who are you? You don't have to, if you don't want to, you can just tell me your name and where you're from or something. You don't have to, you can just say Skip, or however you want to do it. Whoever wants to start it off.
Jimmy Nord from Hogansville.
Jimmy Nord, Hogansville.
Kenyatta Bell, Meriwether County, Greenville, Georgia.
Kenyatta Bell, Meriwether County, Greenville, Georgia. And then y'all know the other ones that are in here. All right, let's do it. So, you want to do yours?
Sure.
All righty, cool beans. And you just have to get to your thing. So, sorry, one last thing. Restrooms is right here. There's a restroom here. It's a private restroom for the conference room here. And then also, garbage and trash. There's a trash can in the back. If you brought it with you, take it with you. Let's try not to mess the room up too much.
I'll start off with a little bit of history about myself. I moved to Georgia about 5 years ago from Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I
Hit the thing right there.
which one? I'm sorry. Okay.
And then you can just right and left arrow and go through your slides. Yeah. Yep, that right there. What's going on, guys?
And I was deputy sheriff. Worked in jail for about 3 years. I worked in the ADSEG, which is the Administrative Segregation Unit. Worked around the very high-powered inmates, Mexican Mafia, Russian Mafia. A lot of the organized crime people were up in my module. That was pretty interesting. So from there, I transferred over to the city because I didn't know if I wanted to stay in law enforcement, and I definitely did not want to stay in the jail. So I transferred over to the city to see if I wanted to stay or leave and go into another field. So I left and went into the city police department, stayed there, subsequently retired from there. I became a private investigator in California, Arizona. During the course of time, I started contracting for the Superior Court, and the court systems are different in California than they are here. But they have a Superior Court, and I worked out of the Criminal Courts building in downtown Los Angeles. And it was somewhat of a third public defender's office, the way that it operated. We worked for the judges and then got assigned certain cases. And that'll be important as I go along some of these examples here that I have. During the course of doing all this, I investigated 456 homicide cases. Quite a few. That includes probably several hundred attempted murders, assault with deadly weapon cases, robberies, kidnappings, over 30 organized crime cases. Los Angeles, like New York and Chicago, is kind of a unique area. We have opportunities there to conduct certain investigations that you really don't get anywhere else in the world. And Los Angeles is kind of unique. In California, the way they have the system there, it offers subcontractors for the courts and so forth a lot of opportunity to do cases because like the public defender's office, for example, they don't have the resources or the funding to do certain things, but the courts who pay the investigators are from the state, so they have more money to work with. So that's how a lot of that gets done. So I did that for the courts for about 15 years before I moved out here. And in the court system, I testified in military court, federal court, state court, which is Superior Court here, as an expert in human trafficking, pimping and pandering, and labor trafficking and organ trafficking. So I testified as an expert in California courts throughout the whole state, and in the Southern District of California, and federal court in the Central District of California. Leading to here, I became a private investigator in Georgia and Alabama. I have since let my investigator's license expire in Georgia because I wasn't using it here. I'm still licensed in Alabama, and there's a huge difference between the systems between Georgia and Alabama. Alabama is much more like California, where Georgia's just kind of unique the way that they do things. Especially I noticed here in Georgia is working around criminal defense attorneys. A lot of them don't like a stranger being around to see what they're doing or not doing in a lot of cases. Because my experience is that they are not doing a lot. I think somebody at the back door. Which I have a major disagreement with, not doing your job. Whether you work for the prosecutor or you work for the defense, you got to give 100% of your effort to the client, whoever it is, whether it's the people or the defendant. The cases themselves, if it's a defense case, if a person's guilty, they're guilty. It's going to be proven in court. You can't change that. A lot of times, those people aren't guilty for everything they're accused of. They may have 8 charges and only be guilty of 2 of them. And that's what becomes important when you're investigating on someone's behalf. To make sure that they're only charged with and go to trial with what they actually may have done instead of some fabricated case. Any questions about anything? Yes, ma'am.
You said that Georgia's unique, so in nice words, what is that? How
It's
unique are we?
It's unique where, and I'm looking from a criminal defense investigator perspective,
Right.
is unique in the sense where, and one is, it's hard to get work because my opinion is a lot of criminal defense attorneys, they don't want somebody around who is going to ask questions, say, why isn't this done? Why isn't that done?
So the accountability.
The accountability.
Right.
My experience is criminal defense attorneys in Georgia, they want to take the police report and go with whatever story that law enforcement wants to tell.
Right.
And they want to stick with that story. They don't want to create their own story. And to do it correctly, the defense has to create their own story with the facts that they're given. They don't do that here. I've had many clients here, when I was doing cases, they would tell me that I did more for their case in 3 months that I was on it than the attorneys did in the last 2 years that they had the attorney. So not a whole bunch is getting done, and that'll work right into my presentation as we go. So as we go, I have some images that are very graphic, but it's going to prove a point. They're just not there to be graphic. Going to have video and photographs and some examples of what causes wrongful convictions. One that jumps into my head was out of West Los Angeles, the police did a search warrant on an apartment. Well, something wasn't matching between what the police said and what the client was saying didn't match. So what we did is we took the video, we got the metadata from their video, and we got the search warrant. California, telephonic search warrant has to have date, time, if they spoke with the judge. Well, they got the search warrant 45 minutes after they did the search. Not good. But if it wasn't for us looking at the metadata and listening to our client, you'd be in prison.
Legit, yeah.
You'd be in prison.
So, but you're saying, make sure we fact check everything?
Everything needs to be fact checked. You don't believe whatever the law enforcement presents. You accept it and you verify. And the other problem with what law enforcement does is they interpret what people say or what they see is their interpretation. A lot of times their interpretation isn't malicious, it's just by their personal experiences and growing up, they interpret it different than someone else. Like 3 of us can watch a guy rob a gas station and guarantee you 3 of us will give the police a different description of what happened. No one's totally wrong. It's just a perception. Police do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and, any questions so far? I'm going to go ahead and get started. And this is kind of off topic, but there is a story behind this. This is a story of incompetence. That's kind of very sad, actually. It's going to be in segments. So I got to play it in segments.
On Monday, February 25th, 2017, at 5:30 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 480 minutes.
That's the way the radio system is in Los Angeles.
Installation station, please, can we help you?
Hey, CC here. Hey, I have a shots fired call.
What are you?
1430 Boulder Key Drive. And yeah, Victor Ocean and Lincoln Nora Everieto. And she saying her cousin was shot at the house. Someone came in and shot him. Yeah, transferred more to the paramedics.
In Los Angeles, the cell phone 911 goes to CHP, and then they direct it to the agency.
That's the CHP.
And fire is already on the way?
Yeah, they're talking to them.
Do you have the number for the station or?
Yeah, 323-598-4096.
I'm going to skip to the next one.
Call 1 on Monday, February 25th, 2017, at 5:30 a.m. with a Monday, February 20th, 2017. The time, 5:28 a.m.
911, you're recording.
Can y'all hear everything?
What's the address?
I'm not sure. Somebody got shot here.
Somebody got what?
Somebody got shot.
Okay, what's the address? What street? What street is it on?
It's 21430. What's Bowling? Bowling?
know this person that got shot?
It's my cousin's boyfriend. It's 14:30, and then, I'm not seeing.
Okay, do you have a piece of mail where you see his address?
Excuse me?
Do you have a piece of mail somewhere where you see the address?
Hold on. Okay, no. What's the address?
So I'm gonna go to the next one here.
Monday, February.
Yeah, it's important to know where you're at.
Mhm.
But because of the trauma she's suffering, she may know, but she just blacked out at that particular time.
Call one on Monday, February 2017, at 5:32 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 480 minutes. Agent ID extension is 3.
It's an influence in the city because the response unit on a GSV, 1430 Volney Drive, 1430 Volney Drive. Unknown person shot at informant's cousin. Tag 55, unit 1. 24, supervision on. 2-4 from the station, unit closer. 2-4. 2-4 and 2-3 respond to that. 2-4. Hold up. 2-3 also respond to it.
Call one on Monday,
Audience restricted on me until get a code 4. Four, 509, start flying country.
Yeah, it all leads to something here. We're almost towards the end. So we have a shootout, and one officer's been shot. This is not at the house. So the deputies in East Los Angeles, they went to a house in East Los Angeles. This is in East LA, but a different part of East LA. So now we have two different scenes going on. And at the second scene, that's where an officer was shot.
Any unit on scene, is there an outstanding suspect?
Negative outstanding, one officer down, half fire escalate. And Marcus, the claim on the east side.
Okay. This is Mejia. He's a Mexican mafia member. He's the one the story is all about. Mexican mafia in California, that's where it started. There's only 200 actually Mexican mafia members. The rest of them are what they call soldiers. And they all listen to these people. And they all have sections of the state that they control. And they all have sections of jails. For example, when he went to jail, he became the leader of the Los Angeles County jail system. He controlled it. He controlled it more than the deputies controlled it.
Can I ask a question real quick,
Yes.
Robert? Okay, so you said that there are only 200 Mexican mafia members and the rest are all served.
Main members, yes.
Okay, so is this just in context to California, or is this like,
This is California,
Okay.
but this is where it's based upon. All over the country, it comes out of here.
right, okay, because, you know, in Phoenix City, we have Mexican mafia as well, so I didn't know if like it all,
It all trickles back
okay,
to this.
okay.
Okay, that's the officer. So this is what happened. They get the call, somebody's shot. Well, the guy I showed you, that was his cousin. He wasn't paying his taxes to the Mexican mafia. So his job, relative or not, guy refused to pay taxes, so he killed him. And then the guy I showed you stole the car. And the deputies who arrived knew the murder occurred and the murderer stole the car. Now, in another part of East Los Angeles is a traffic accident. And officers get there, it's a traffic accident. Somebody calls it in, 911 call, hey, there's an accident. Cops get there, oh, get us a tow truck. Well, guess who somebody in the car is? The guy I showed you. Guess what the deputies didn't do? Incompetence. They didn't ask the dispatcher to put it in the system as a priority stop, armed and dangerous car. So the deputies get there, the officers get there, they just run the license plate because they're gonna tow the car as an accident. They don't know this car was just stolen from a murder. The guy I showed you, he knows it was stolen from a murder. He doesn't know, the cops don't know. So what does he do? He takes out his gun and starts shooting people up. And, yes ma'am?
What is the call, is it a flop call when they're looking for a suspect or something like that?
A bolo?
Bolo. So how do they know, if it's like related to something like this, with a murder attached to it, or if it's just something simple, like a misdemeanor?
Well, bolos put out after they're usually aware of somebody. They didn't know who the killer was, but they knew the car. They knew the killer stole the car.
So is the crime, alleged crime already with the bolo call, or they don't know nothing?
They never put anything in the computer.
Okay.
See, I don't know how it is here in California. You can put the license plate in, it goes into the nationwide system as armed and dangerous, involved in a murder. So as soon as an officer runs that license plate, everything on his computer lights up like a Christmas tree.
Okay.
And
So whatever, like for this, for instance, it would have been a bolo call, and what you said, dangerous and.
it would have shown up on the light, when they got there and saw the traffic accident, they ran the license plate, it would have showed up right there, and they would have handled it completely differently.
Different than how they handled it, okay.
But the deputies at the scene did not do that. And that was incompetence. You don't ever do that. I had one where we had a guy who was, called 911. He said he was naked inside his own apartment and he smeared feces all over himself. And he needs help. It was nighttime. So I get there and his apartment is the only one that faces the alley. And there's no alley lights, street lights back, it's dark. I said, okay, have the dispatcher call in, have him come out to us, because the whole thing didn't seem right. So he refused to come out, so we basically left. I put it in the computer about the whole thing, it was a red flag. The next day, same thing happens. They tell the officers that were out there, hey, this happened yesterday, and this is what happened. Unfortunately, they didn't pay attention, they walked down that alley. They got open fire on it. That's what he was doing, he was trying to set people up. So, again, incompetence does a lot of things. Any questions so far? And that was kind of not really has anything to do with the wrongful convictions, because he was eventually convicted and sentenced to death. But in California, no one gets the death penalty, so it's just a very expensive process that they go through. So wrongful conviction is conviction of an innocent person for a crime they did not commit. And to extend that further, again, like I said earlier, somebody may be charged with 8 different crimes, and they may be guilty of 2 of them, but those other 6, they're innocent of. And that could be the difference of getting, 30 years in prison or 2 years in prison. And I'm a firm believer if somebody did something wrong, they have to pay the price. But pay the price for what you do, not for what they think you might have done. That's very important. You know, it's just like officer-involved shootings, and I was involved in 3 of them. You get in a situation where you have to shoot somebody, or you can shoot somebody. There's a big difference. Can and have to. And a lot of times it's not a split-second decision. You got like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to think about it. And a lot of people choose because they can, not because they have to. Is it legal? Most of the time it's legal. But is it morally right? I don't think so. So that's the Georgia Innocence Project, and most innocent projects are DNA based. Not all, but most of them are DNA based. So it's really important after, if you're working in the defense of somebody, or even if you're an investigative reporter, is to see something, go out there and start asking questions immediately. That's where you're going to get a lot of good information. You know, of course, DNA is great if it works for you, but sometimes it takes 15, 20 years before somebody comes along and decides they're going to help you with DNA. You can't count on the district attorney or the police helping you, because if there's any indication that it may help you, they may not just do the testing. That's why it's better to go out and talk to the witnesses and all that immediately. And usually to exonerate somebody, the courts, if you have a witness that changes their mind, or they recant their statements, a lot of courts aren't going to listen to that for various reasons. That's why they want hard evidence like DNA, fingerprints, video, something like that. Some of the common causes of wrongful convictions is eyewitness misidentification. Anybody who gets in a stressful situation, you get tunnel vision. Everybody does that. I don't care how many times you've been in it, you get tunnel vision. That's going to distort a lot of your vision and how you perceive things. You know, it's the kind of weapon. That's why when people say, well, he pointed a gun at me and the barrel was that big. Well, to them, that's what it was, when it actually is just a little .22. But it really distorts, that stress really distorts what you see. The other problem is the way that police interview people. They can make a lot of suggestions in the interview. Well, you know, did he have a yellow shirt or an orange shirt? You know, when they know the person had a certain kind of shirt on, that they're kind of tailoring their questions to be specifics of the person they're looking at to arrest or prosecute. And you got to really look at the interviews. Now they have the body cams and the questions that are asked. It's really important to see the sequence of how those things are occurring. Misidentification accounts for probably 50% of the problems. You see it all the time in court where somebody will go in and they'll identify somebody out on the streets. You go to court and the prosecutor goes, well, point to the person who you saw. And they're looking around, they're looking at the judge, they're looking at the jury. They don't remember. That's because a lot of times, not every time, of course, and when I say this, it doesn't mean this occurs every time or the vast majority of times. It's something that does occur, and it's very concerning. It occurs too often. False confessions. That people don't understand how somebody can confess to like a murder or a rape or something like that they didn't do. It's very easy to do. Education has a lot to do with it. A person's sophistication level has a lot to do with it. A lot of people, their mental capacities have a lot to do with it. That's why even as if you're doing a criminal investigation or doing it as a investigative reporter, you got to dig into this. You know, why did this person confess? You got to get his school records. What's that? The special ed classes that you may have. Go ahead.
IEP?
Yes, You have to get all those records. You have to talk to people to see what kind of, person. Is he a follower? Is he a kind of person that just says, goes along with the program? So when the cops come and stand around him, 3 cops with guns, and they fold their arms and, scaring the crap out of the guy, and he says, okay, I did it, just for them to go away? Is that a real confession? Not really, but it happens a lot. I see it here in Georgia because you do have a lot of, especially the smaller towns, where the sophistication level isn't as high. The intimidation level is off the charts with law enforcement and authorities. A lot of people, they've been conditioned for whatever reason to fear, not trust, and they get intimidated very easily. Yes, ma'am.
So with, you mentioned in the mental health and IEP concerns, is there a way for that to be tested so that a person doesn't get wrongfully convicted? Or is it hard to prove, or does it stand any, do they have any chances in court?
Oh, yeah, no, you definitely have a chance in court. Is it hard to prove? Everything's hard to prove if you're going against the prosecutor of the state. They make you jump through all kinds of hoops. So yes, it's hard. Is it possible? Absolutely. So you get all the records together, and hopefully you get with somebody, psychologist or somebody that has a good social worker, maybe with a master's, who has a good understanding and can look at all the records that you gather and go, okay, this is a profile of this person. This is some things that might trigger this person. So it's all very important. Again, nowadays, everything should be video recorded and audio recorded, so you can hear the tone that the investigators are talking to people. Are they, like an intimidating tone? Because they will pick up on whoever they're speaking with, and they will play the role of either try to intimidate, try to be their buddy. I mean, it happens quick, their decisions that they make. Most of the times they're right on how to deal with people.
Is there a time period if someone is wrongfully convicted that they can challenge it later?
You can challenge it. Hopefully, you figure these things out before they're convicted and it's brought up in court. The attorney will bring it up as a motion and have a hearing about the false confession before. Because once you get convicted, now it gets really, really hard to change anything. Especially if it's a conviction by a jury, it gets real hard. Okay. So a lot of these things need to be fought beforehand. Again, if you're doing investigative reported stuff, you can, if you're on top of it at the beginning, you can get this information, or later on even, post-conviction, you can, work on it and try to fight for that. Sometimes the lengthy interrogations, sometimes, that's important too, is how long was this person interrogated for? How old is this person? How much sleep did they have? Were they using drugs before? Were they drinking before? You got to find out all that information. You get somebody in the room for 13, 14 hours, and you haven't fed them, given them water, and they have a low mental capacity, they're going to confess to you. You tell them at the end, you want a hamburger? Did you do this? Oh, heck yeah, I did that, and a whole bunch more. So you can't trust whatever they say. And of course, anything that anybody tells you on any side of the coin has to be verified. If it can't be verified, it doesn't exist. Okay, misconduct. This is one of those things where it occurs, but I don't think it occurs as much as people want to believe, that official misconduct creates the false convictions or just wrongful convictions. Sometimes prosecutors and police will do it intentionally. More times than not, it's just accidental. It's sloppiness on their part. But when you get down to number 2, it's when the fabricating and concealing evidence and tampering with witnesses. Those are straight felony crimes, and that's done intentionally. And those are things that will normally stick out. If you ask enough questions of people, you'll start seeing a pattern. You'll see patterns of how come when the police interview people, they got the body cam on these 7 people. However, this one person, this 8th person, who tells them the whole story of everything that happened in detail, there's no body cam. There's no recording. It's like, what happened? Those are the red flags. And then you find out this person is an informant, and they're supposed to have an informant package on the person, and they don't. They don't have things that they should have. Those are all red flags that something's wrong. Any questions so far about this?
You said, so the informant, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh.
No, so you're saying the informant is the officer?
No,
Oh.
informant is somebody off the streets. But usually informants, if it's a police informant, not just a witness, I'm not talking just a witness, I'm talking an informant, they should have what they call an informant package, information about that person, about his prior cases that they've testified on, or they've provided information on, and how much of that information was true and accurate, those sorts of things. If they're paying the person, how much they're paying them, just a lot of things like that they should have. But a lot of the times when they come up with these, especially in murder cases, the gang cases, all of a sudden all that stuff is gone. And the people that, well, they'll admit they were a police informant for 7 years. Not one piece of paper about them being an informant. That's because they don't want the stuff of how many times they got caught lying being an informant. They don't want that out. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned body cams.
Yes.
Police departments are supposed to use body cams to promote transparency, right?
Yes.
So why is it that you see so often a police officer cutting the sound off, and why are they able to do that?
The only time they're able to legally do that is if 2 officers are having a discussion about strategy on whatever they're doing, they can turn the sound off for that.
But otherwise, no.
Otherwise, they should not be turning the sound off. So if we're both officers and I meet with you and we're going, okay, this is the investigation tactic that we're going to use, do this, do that.
I can understand that.
Yeah, that should be turned off. But other than that, once that conversation is done, it should be turned back on.
And then going back to your previous slide, talking about some different stuff, and I was thinking, why are we not doing more to promote individuals to know their Fifth Amendment rights as far as, confessing and such? The best thing to do is not say anything without, can't you do that? Like if you're out in the field and about to be arrested, you can say, I ain't saying nothing.
Yep. At no time do you ever have to say anything.
Right.
The only time that Miranda kicks in is if you're in custody. Other than that, they can ask you all kinds of questions. You can say, I declare my 5th Miranda, whatever, it doesn't matter, they can keep asking you questions. It only applies when you're in custody.
So, but even if you're in custody, you don't have to answer questions
No.
without an attorney present.
Right. And another thing is the police don't have to give you Miranda. They don't ask you any questions, they don't have to give you Miranda rights.
Right.
So people think once the handcuffs come on, you didn't give me my Miranda rights. I don't have to because I'm not asking you questions about the crime. I can ask you questions about this crime over here. I just can't ask you questions about the crime I arrested you for. I can ask you a crime about my favorite person was Fat Rat over here, but not about this robbery that I just arrested you for. So, and you see a lot of people say, I declare my 5th, it's just, I don't know where people get that from. You just don't talk. I don't have to talk to you. There's only really one exception that I'm aware of, is if you talk to a federal agent. If you don't want to tell him the absolute truth about every single thing, don't open your mouth. Because if you lie about one little thing, it's a federal crime. So it's better either be truthful or say absolutely nothing.
What if you confuse a date? Because that recently happened to me with a car accident. They asked during my deposition, about a particular something that happened. And I said 2015 instead of 2017, but I wasn't trying, I just got confused about the actual year.
Yeah, things like that are obvious,
Okay.
you know, to people. Like,
But my attorney thought it was gonna come back on me as perjury, and I'm like, how?
perjury has to be an intentional act.
Right, okay.
Okay, if I'm on the stand and I take the oath and I'm testifying in federal court or state court or wherever, military court, and I take the stand and all of a sudden they ask me, and it's in Southern California, it's 100 degrees outside, right? Is it snowing outside, Mr. Reus? Absolutely, it's snowing, it's horrible. I just lied, right? But what relevance does that have to do with the case? Nothing. So it's not perjury. It has to be relevant to what you're testifying about. You know, but again, it has to be intentional. Mistaken of a date, that's, nobody ever considers that as anything. Especially if it's written down somewhere, people make mistakes like that. That's why usually an attorney will ask somebody the same question in different ways. If the question wasn't asked or answered correctly, they'll ask it different ways just to verify. That way a lot of people will go, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, that was that date, wasn't that date. Okay, no problem, and you move on. Okay. Forensic science, that's one of the big things too. Then you have a lot of corrupt forensic scientists that are out there. You got the Houston Crime Lab years ago, that all went belly up. You had the FBI, I forget what, that was about, 8 years ago, they had some major problems. A lot of the big crime labs, you had the LAPD crime lab with fingerprints, that backfired on them. So there's a lot of forensic problems. And whether you do it, you know, as interest or investigative reporter or for the defense of somebody, everybody can search this stuff. All this stuff is public records. You know, you get all the records, and if you know what you're looking for, you can see inconsistencies and patterns. You can see certain analysis always come up with almost the same verbiage on everybody. It's like, how does that happen? It doesn't happen. We used to see it with cocaine when they had analyzed that. It's like always the same. And one time in federal court, it was a DEA case, and it was a cocaine case, and it was the difference between, they have weights in federal court, no matter how much time you get. And it was a matter of how much the DEA agent booked in evidence to how much they're claiming in the report, in the indictment. And it was the difference of some guy doing 2 years in federal prison for like 20 years. And they screwed that up. They just they didn't like the guy because the guy gave him a hard time when he was arrested. So they just beefed it up a little bit. So you gotta look at all that stuff. Any other questions? Unreliable informants, we kind of talked about that. There's a lot of informants out there, they're working off their own cases, especially jailhouse informants. Those are red flags if you're an investigative reporter or do defense work or just interest. Those need to be checked into. You gotta really do the history on those informants. They're always only after themselves. It's meism, it's me, and that's what they're all about. They will turn in their own mother to get out. They don't care. It was funny, I had this one case that I was defending the guy, he shot and killed a deputy sheriff. So they put him inside of a cell. Cell is probably about half the size of this room. and they put in undercover deputies in the same jail cell with them. And you watch the video, and everyone's mingling around and talking, getting comfortable with each other. And as the video develops, you see the defendant standing over here. You see like 5 deputies in a line standing over here, and you start laughing because then they start asking them one by one, start asking them questions, like an interrogation. Now, the defendant doesn't pick up on this. He's sitting there, of course, answering all their questions, like, you know, they're all homeboys, you know, in jail together. But from a perspective of looking at the video, we were laughing so hard, it's so obvious what was going on, but he didn't pick up on it. And I don't know if they do it here, but it's a big thing in California where they put actual officers undercover. They lock them up in jail to gather information. Because the informants are so horrible that they can only use the actual police officer said, yeah, I was in the cell with him for 4 days, and this is what we talked about. I don't know, when I was a deputy, I worked inside a maximum security facility, and I wasn't even locked up, and after 8 hours, I was ready to go home. So I couldn't imagine, you know, being locked up 24 hours a day for 3 or 4 days. Takes a special person to do that. Then we have racial bias. A lot of racial bias it's cross-race identification. And it's proven scientifically it's harder to identify somebody outside your own race. That's the bottom line. Caucasian people identify Caucasian people easier, black people. Now, you identify people from other races, but it's more consistently, you get more details within your own race. That's just the way life is. So, when you see a situation where someone is of a different race, it's important to clarify certain little things. You just ask them certain little things, their experiences, exposure to that particular race, and you gather that information and have an understanding, okay, can they tell the difference? It's a judgment call too. Can they tell differences? Sometimes this racial bias is straight out, you know. A black guy did it, for example. It doesn't matter if the Chinese guy, they're gonna blame somebody else. For whatever race they don't like, they're gonna blame. And that's not as common as it used to be, but it's still alive and well. It still happens. Okay, does anybody have an idea who they think is the number one reason? This is not only me, but it's been proven. The number one reason for wrongful convictions. Anybody have a guess? Defense attorneys. They're the number one reason. And the reason I say that is all these things we talked about, if you got a good defense attorney who has a good investigator, all these issues should have been investigated and checked out and brought to the attention of the attorney before it goes to trial. And I hate to say it, but in Georgia here, my experience is I don't see that occurring that often. I'm sure it does occur, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see that much interest in that occurring. And I've always thought, my personal experiences is probably about 7 or 8% of the people that are incarcerated at any level are factually innocent. That's my opinion, are factually innocent. There's a lot more people that are over-convicted, but complete innocence. And those people should have been discovered way before they went to trial. And because an attorney didn't hire an investigator to check into it, you know, here a guy sitting in prison. Should never be. Again, I'm a firm believer if you do something wrong, you gotta pay the price, but you pay the price for what you did. Failure to investigate. It's amazing how many attorneys won't even go out to the crime scene and look at the crime scene. You get a shooting in the street, you gotta go out to the crime scene. The attorney's gotta go out there. You know, as an investigator, when I go out there, I'll figure out exactly where the body was shot at, and I'll stand there, and I'll just look. I'll videotape, and I will look to see all the views, all the way around. Who could see, who couldn't see. It's very simple. And you go, okay, I need to go knock on that door. I need to go knock on this door. I need to come over here. Is there a bus stop right there? What time was it? I need to come back here the next day at that time to see if anybody's waiting. This isn't a big city, so you're gonna get people waiting at the bus stop, right? It's not like here where you probably won't get anybody.
Right.
But you go back and talk to people and say, hey, you know, yesterday this happened, you know, guys, remember that shooting? Yeah, I remember that. Did you see anything? And most of the time, the police never talk to these people because they're on their bus and they're gone. Yes, ma'am.
So I actually did that. My daughter and I got hit while we were parked during a police chase, an unauthorized police chase, and an unauthorized picnic on a federal holiday.
Mhm.
And so, even though we were in pain, I went back and took pictures and videos of how it looked then when it happened, which I'm glad, because what started to happen after that, the store did landscaping, because the trees was, you know, you couldn't see around it. And then they put up a fence to block this embankment with a concrete well. And then the police department, when we began to go ask different businesses about cameras, or, you know, the footage, the police had already went there and got it. But they have not they didn't make it available to our attorney. And I'm like, it seems like they were trying to hide something. So, but how do you prove it? That, you know, what they did?
Yeah, you have to get that through, you know, if you have an attorney on the accident through discovery, open records act requests and things like that, to find out when they collected it, what they collected. And you get a copy, you know, you can't get a copy of the Open Records Act during an active investigation, but your attorney can, as part of the discovery. You know, so he can get all that. Another thing is important to go see. I went after this. They said that this happened in the Watts area, Los Angeles. They said that undercover agents bought dope through a fence, right? And that the other agents saw exactly what happened. It was tar heroin. So like all the cases, I go out there and I go stand where the fence door was. I'm standing there. And I'm looking around, I'm going, okay, figure out, okay, the cops said they were there. And I'm looking at it going, wait a second. The cop that saw the transaction identified it as tar heroin at the time. There's a big tree right there. He couldn't see through that tree. So he almost got wrongfully convicted, or client did, for that. Because they were lying. They didn't see nothing. Did he have the tar heroin? Yeah. But the problem is they lied after the probable cause to get to that point. So unfortunately, you know, he got away with it that time. I'm sure he probably got, you know, caught up, you know, days later or something else, because a lot of people do that, you know. They don't know when to stop. It's amazing how the defense attorneys, this is where if you're doing investigative reporting and so forth, or defense work, is not talking to the defendant. The person that has most of the information is going to be them. They're going to tell you witnesses. Do they lie to you? Absolutely, they lie to you. If they want to lie to you and take you down, you know, a rabbit hole, well, that's their life. They're going to, you know, waste. But most of them, my experience, will be truthful because they know that their life is on the line, and they'll give you mostly accurate information. But I remember this one attorney, we had this one death penalty case, and it's important for the attorney to get to see the person at least 2 or 3 times a month throughout the whole process. They went almost 18 months with never visiting the client. How can you represent somebody on a death penalty case and not talk to the person? So that leads to wrongful convictions because of the incompetence of the defense attorney. So failure to account for all the discovery, that's very important. Reading all the reports, you gotta read all the reports. You gotta look at all the discovery. So I'm gonna play this for you. This is an attorney who's actually doing what he's supposed to do. He's trying to call the district attorney to get everything.
Well, George, it's not, I need those phone records. I've been promised them for a couple of weeks. They're not in the discovery. I asked for the motion, and there's always things that won't be in there. So, there won't be any medical records, there won't be any phone records, all of those things are very, very powerful evidence. So, please let me know if there's a possibility of getting them at some time.
So that's the defense attorney that's talking to the prosecutor. And it turns out the defense attorney had to do a motion in court in front of the judge and have a hearing to compel the prosecutor to give him that stuff, which he didn't want to do because it ruined the prosecutor's case. But if that was a different attorney and didn't press the issue, guess what? That guy would probably be convicted because he wouldn't know about those phone records. And phone records are very good evidence. Now, they're hard to get if you're doing it privately, like an investigative reporter. You have to get releases usually from people. But if you're trying to bring out the truth, people will sign releases for you, and cooperate.
Well, George.
So failure to locate and interview witnesses. For example, always, if you're going out there at a scene, you see a house, and let's say the police interviewed John Smith, and John Smith said, I don't know, I didn't see anything. I don't know, I didn't see anything, right? You go back to the house and talk to John Smith, hey, I understand you didn't see anything, but was anybody else home at that time? Yeah, Cindy and Marvin, they were home. And you talked to Cindy and Marvin, who the police never asked about. Oh, I was looking out my window, saw the whole thing. It wasn't the guy in the green shirt. He was right next to him, but the guy that was dressed in all black with the cap on, he's the one that had the gun. You see how, but they're only going along the story, so people get wrongfully convicted. They'll bring up that one witness that points to the client and go, yeah, he did it all. But now you have other witnesses that go, no, what's that called? You got one witness saying he did, you have two witnesses that said, no, it was the other guy. It's called reasonable doubt. Okay, this one is kind of graphic. This is important. I'm going to tell you what happened beforehand. So there's a shooting. And you have to pay attention. There's a lady that's like sitting next to the guy or squatting next to the guy that got shot. Listen to what she says. In court, she starts testifying that she was standing next to the guy that got shot when he got shot, and she points at the time my client as the person that did the shooting. Now, her and my client have bad blood between them for a long time. This happened in the Skid Row section of Los Angeles. So listen to what she tells you. Now this has happened, she's going to say this right after it happened. So she's excited, she's probably 99.9% telling the truth of what she saw when this body cam was captured.
We got it. Ma'am?
I'm not moving.
I want you to move. I want you to look this time.
I didn't see anything. All I saw was gunshots. I can't run.
Well, listen to me. I'm gonna need you to just step back to the...
Okay, I didn't see anything. All I heard was gunshots and they came, right? Now, are you going to believe her then? Or are you going to believe her a year and a half later that says, no, I was standing next to him when it happened, I saw him do it? You're going to believe that, right? Again, that's going to lead to a wrongful conviction. Client would have been convicted if it wasn't for that body cam. So body cam's use is for a whole bunch of different things. not only for transparency, but also for evidence gathering and truthfulness. As in Russ's case, when he got arrested, the body cam, exposed a lot. And Russ's case is a prime example of avoiding a wrongful conviction.
So
Yes, ma'am.
with body cams and car cams, are they supposed to keep that information or keep those videos, when it's concerning, an incident or anything? Or it doesn't purge itself after a certain time?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a complex question, kind of. Because they have to keep it for a minimum of 6 months in Georgia, right? But most body cams automatically, incompetent agencies, get attached to the incident. Some kind of reference to, a lot of them will just burn a body cam and keep it and store it in the case file. But that's why you have to go in, the attorney or somebody has to go in, or investigative reporter can even do it to a certain degree of a notice of preservation to keep it so they don't destroy it. But after 6 months, if they wanted to, they could destroy it. And of course, in Georgia, nothing would happen to them because they get away with everything.
We got it.
Okay, so this is just an email or text that somebody sent me. This is about Suge Knight, and when you do this work and you get, you hand out 100 business cards, people send you a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is people's opinions, like this is just an opinion. But you do get factual information that is worth following up on. And why I put this in here, I don't know. Okay, so this attorney you're going to see in a second, Matt, he was the same attorney that was on that phone call. Matt is a very aggressive and a very good attorney. He was on the Suge Knight case. Now, him and another attorney named Culpepper, they were on the Suge Knight. They were his attorneys at the beginning. So what happened is there's some funny business going on the side that the courts were made aware of by the FBI. So the judge presiding over the case asked me to do like a shadow type of investigation on Suge Knight's behalf, because he had a feeling these two attorneys were going to be around longer. So he had me doing that, and he had assigned an attorney that I eventually worked with to get ready to take over the case. What happens is Suge Knight is a very manipulative person. He's very smart. He's an extremely smart guy. He's no dummy. So he knew how to work people. He was broke at the time this all happened. He ended up with no more money. The attorneys decided they were going to go out and solicit people to make statements on his behalf and offer them money to make these statements. Well, the FBI caught wind of this, and they did something very questionable, is they put listening devices in the attorney room. Now, in Los Angeles County, the attorney room is probably, if you put 6 of these rooms together, that's how big it is. It's very big. And they had listening devices in there, supposedly targeting Suge Knight. But when the deputies bring down somebody, nobody knows what seat's going to be available. I mean, it could be seat A, seat Z, who knows, right? So how come every time he had a meeting with his attorneys, they were able to get the exact seat location of where they're meeting to record it? That's because they were all bugged, all listened to, which is a whole different question. But they did it through, they did it legally, just for his attorneys. So subsequently, the attorneys got arrested, indicted, arrested. Culpepper, the one attorney, he's in federal prison right now because it turns out he was doing tax scams on people, on his clients. This attorney you're gonna see, he got disbarred, and I think they gave him probation instead of any jail time, but it cost him a lot of money. So it's kind of an interesting, I'm not gonna play this whole thing, just play part of it here.
Assault with a deadly weapon. Joining us now to talk more about this, Attorney Matt Fletcher. He's represented this year of
Very
big
good
clients,
attorney,
including
an excellent
Suge Knight.
attorney.
We should just mention.
Just read.
Small, everything.
Yeah, so you saw, here now, assault with deadly weapons, he's being hauled to downtown to get booked for that. How serious is this?
This is the one time you guys got me. Chris Brown's in trouble.
Really?
Chris Brown.
Yeah, but you hear that he said, she said there, and a lot of his buds are kind of like going back there.
Chris Brown was just a run-of-the-mill, mid-30s, multi-millionaire celebrity. You would think, oh, he's clearly being set up. Everyone saw what he did to Rihanna. And so you have a man who has history and domestic violence is all about control. And we have a woman who's very well.
So I'm gonna stop, but I just wanted to see the attorney, and like I said, the guy was a very successful attorney in Los Angeles. I mean, he had more clients than he could ever deal with, and he wanted, I guess it was a fame thing dealing with Suge Knight, you know, I can never figure it out. I mean, I sat with Suge Knight probably 40 or 50 times face to face talking to him. I mean, he's a smart guy, he's a talker, but I never got any desire to extra help him or whatever. But some people do.
Assault with a deadly weapon.
Okay. Here's where the Suge Knight ended up took a 20-year deal. He was looking at life. And he probably should have gotten life. The problem is this, I'm not gonna read this word for word, but there's a Hispanic family that was stopped at a red light. And they had a clear view of the drive-through little hamburger place where this all happened at. Clear view. And this is where things went sour. This is why whether you do investigative reporting or defense work, you gotta talk to people. Because the police report, I'm gonna jump around here so I don't get bored with reading. The police report said that witness 1 saw basically suspect one, Suge Knight, reach down and put the vehicle in reverse or drive, right? Saw his eyes, saw this, saw that. So I get to the people and I start talking to them, and number one is the distance that they were was pretty far, it was at nighttime. Then they started telling me how they have tinted windows, excuse me. They have tinted windows on their car, their windows were rolled up. And no, they didn't actually see, well, you can't see. And they said, no, we didn't see him shifting. And that shifting is important because that's the intent. The prosecutor had to prove the intent. The intent to put it in reverse or forward, intently drove over people. That's what that is, the purpose of them stating that was for, right? The people denied that, they couldn't see any of that stuff. So I went through each one. There was witnesses 1, 2, and 3. And number 7 there becomes important because we were able to prove that one of the people that actually attacked Suge Knight when he was there had a gun. They claimed he had a radio. So they just left that set, that movie they were making, Straight Outta Compton. So one of them's claiming they had a radio. They had a gun. They were able to prove it was a gun, not a radio. And you'll see a recording here in a little bit. This is the other thing, you can do a lot of things. California is a one-party state, unless it's a murder or a kidnapping. Then you can record anybody you want without their knowledge. So I sent in one of Suge's friends, who was also friends with this victim, the guy that was attacking, he only got his legs broken, and he recorded the guy's statement. And you can do all that stuff. It's all legal. Cops do it, you can do it.
Georgia's a one-party state as well.
No, Georgia. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. California's a two-party state.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a two-party state, except for murder and kidnapping. Then you can do whatever you want. And of course, makes sense. So the other thing is it was important to establish they didn't know, the police didn't tell them that it was Suge Knight, because that could influence somebody. Okay. Again, same thing, same problem with windows being tinted. Again, this is all, it all adds up to why Suge Knight he took 28 years instead of life. Just his messages to the producer where he threatened his life, and those were there, that alone would have struck him out on 3 strikes, and he would have got life on that one. But because they screwed this other thing up so bad with these witnesses, they had to back down. There was number 8, where they're claiming in the police report that they saw him put the vehicle in drive, which is, they couldn't see any of that. And again, without that, they don't have the intent to commit murder. It's complex, but if you look at the tires of his truck never change. They're always in the same position when he goes back and he goes forward. So that wipes out their intent too. It wasn't like driving and trying to run these people over. Although, when you look at this right here, the other thing is you're going to see when the first guy gets hit, 2 objects go flying off the guy into the street. Later on, one of those objects gets picked up. That's the gun. So this is a little graphic too. This is the surveillance from Tam's hamburger shop on Rosecrans and Compton. Starts off a little slow, and as soon as the red truck comes into the driveway, then it happens real quickly. But as it comes in, watch the person that approaches the red truck and kind of see their action. It's very grainy, but you can see their action, that they're actually attacking. He walks over there, you can see the hands flying. Now, Suge says he got out of there because the guy had a gun, and Suge didn't have a gun right then. So he wanted to be smart, he wanted to get the heck out of there. He broke his legs.
Ooh.
There's the problem. And that guy died.
I would assume so.
So the guy in the street has broken legs, and the other guy is deceased. See the 2 objects in the street?
Mm-hmm. They're right over there.
Yeah, one of them was a gun.
So which one is the one with the broken leg?
The guy by the sidewalk. The guy
Okay.
at the top. The guy at the very top, laying down.
I see that. Which one is the one that's dead then?
He's kind of behind that white van and that sign.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
He's
Back
laying
there,
down.
okay.
So,
Oh, my word.
again, all this stuff is Suge Knight a nice, honorable citizen? Absolutely not. You know, he told me he started his crimes in college. You know, he went to college. He was never a gangster growing up in Compton. He became a gangster later in life. But he went to college and University of Las Vegas, Nevada, and he saw people, other students out there making money. So, being smart, lazy, and aggressive, he decides he's going to make them a deal. He's going to take some of their profits so that they can continue making their money. And that's how he started to become his organized crime. Then he became Death Row Records, and there's so much going on in there that I can talk for days upon what he told me about that. So yeah, 2 objects are still there, and eventually they go away. I'm going to jump around a little bit in this. So this guy here, I think he's going to get him out. And it just goes when the police come, and Okay, so this is the recording that I was telling you about. Sloan is a guy with the broken legs. So let me start this and where did it go?
Yes, now everybody bumping Dear Mom and all this shit, right? So this I like to think about. And then, so everybody listening to the blood shit, and then guess what? Now you can see they come to fucking training thing. That's what happened. That shit, that shit. That's why the judge picked by you. They want to dead end. We not there. I'm perfect too. They had another dead end on Temple, that was hard too. Matter of fact, we just shot a neck dead end. The original dead end was gonna use on Temple. I just shot a movie down there on that dead end.
And these guys, they were in these movies, Training Day, Strata, Compton. But they're gangsters.
Yeah, so we had places one way in, one way out. I got that. And you want to be real. Shit, this might go too real. What's up? That's what it was. It was the, you know what I'm saying? I'm that real big feature cameo and said a little shit. Yeah. From the fire, how was that when you shot that? Because the white boy was the same trained it, right? That was pretty intense. That was my guy out G in there. Okay. Yeah, I was getting that. Rusty. Rusty. First me, Antoine, and Hitman from the jungle. He marked out. What do you do?
I don't keep it going, but the purpose is, you can see how clear it is. And if you get the right people to go in and talk and they'll record for you, you know, somewhere in there, and I couldn't relocate it after I saw it, is he talks about the gun and the radio. He says, yeah, the prosecutor doesn't want to say it was a gun because it's going to make their case harder. So, all that stuff again. Did Suge Knight, was he wrong? Should he be punished for what he did? Absolutely. But is it first degree murder? That's the question. I don't think so. I think it was vehicle manslaughter myself. And that's what he pled out to. It's the thing is you gotta think outside the box when you're doing investigations. You can't just think traditional. You know, giving somebody who knows somebody a recording, go in there and talk to your buddy, and he had more loyalty to Suge than he did to this guy. But these guys will talk. They just want to, you know, brag and tell their stories. So Bobby Maxwell is another case. He's a Skid Row staffer. He was quasi-homeless, but he would go in Skid Row and kill homeless people when they're sleeping. He'd stab them to death. And turns out, speed forward, there's a guy named Stenson who actually is the killer, no doubt about it, and he lives in Atlanta. He moved to Atlanta right after all this stuff. That's kind of interesting. So he was convicted of first-degree murder. He ended up getting his case reversed, and then it was reinvestigated and started to be relitigated. And that's Bobby Maxwell. Bobby Maxwell, at the end of the day, he didn't kill anybody. He did all that time in prison. At the end of the day, the judge dismissed all the cases against him. the LAPD, the robbery homicide, ended up destroying a lot of the evidence. When you have a death penalty case, the police are supposed to keep that evidence for a lifetime until the person either 99 years, either they get executed or 99 years is up, because they figure 99 years, no one's gonna live that long, right? Especially if you start off at 40 years old. But they destroyed a lot of evidence that can never be relocated. Did they do it on purpose? Because they knew it was gonna lead to a false wrongful conviction, proving that? Don't know. They do it because they were sloppy? Possible. A lot of evidence that couldn't be re-examined, forensically. A little bit of story behind it. They had this one district attorney on it who was just a horrible person, and he would solicit people to perjure themselves. And I had that district attorney in another case, murder cases too, and he was horrible person. To suppress evidence, not share evidence with the defense. Even at the time, the trial judge was saying it's an extremely weak case against him. But the prosecution kept going, and the jury, because the crimes are so horrible, they convict. That's the problem. You have a horrible crime, whether it's, slashing people up or children, jury's gonna convict somebody. They don't care. They're gonna make sure somebody gets convicted. Someone's gonna pay for this crime. And that's another reason people get wrongfully convicted. I'm gonna jump around a little bit here. Here it is. So, we didn't know this at the first trial, but preparing for the second trial, the lead prosecutor, his uncle, owned this bar in downtown Los Angeles. His uncle was one of the key witnesses against the defendant. Strange, huh? He never was disclosed before, but we're doing background checks going, wait a second, how come this witness keeps on referring in his certain records we're researching, the prosecutor? And that was like 10 years ago, because they're related. Okay, probably coming towards the end. I don't know how much time I have.
A few minutes.
Okay, yeah, it's probably 5-6 minutes. Okay, so we have Lonnie Franklin. I don't know if you guys heard of the Grim Sleeper or not. Grim Sleeper, they made movies of them and all kinds of things, okay? Grim Sleeper is a very interesting guy. He was killing, honestly, probably close to 50 or 60 women in South Central Los Angeles. Most all of them are prostitutes. Now here's the thing, if you look at the bodies where they were placed, some were placed inside of big trash bins and other things. Lonnie Franklin's a small guy. He's like 5'7", 150 pounds. Now, I don't know if you guys ever lifted a dead body. I have several times, and it's not easy to do. I mean, even light people, 100-pound dead body is not easy to maneuver. So he had to have had somebody help him, right? Which we knew that he did, but the police investigating didn't. So here we go. We have a witness who says that there was 2 or 3 guys in the car. She survived. She's the only survivor. 2 or 3 guys in the car at the time her attack occurred, which is consistent with the way bodies were placed, right? That was never investigated. Nobody checked into any of that. There are, I can tell you right now, 2 people out there still walking the streets in Los Angeles that are serial killers that participated in this. So here's, you can tell, I mean, he's next to this female, and I've seen her many times, and she's just a normal sized regular female, she's not big or anything like that, and he's even smaller than her. Now, what's interesting about this is they were into credit card fraud. And this credit card fraud had been going on for a while. Now, they had a VHS, remember the old VHS? They had one of those the police took during their search warrant. And if the police ever looked in there, which they never did, and if it went to auction, somebody got a good deal, there was $27,000 cash hidden inside that VHS player. That, who knows, somebody probably got it. That's what they're hiding their cash in. Now, he would steal these ladies' IDs, and they found all the IDs in her house, in his house. Now, what's unique is the lady who survived. I'm going through her credit report, credit header information, and I'm looking through this whole thing because you want to look at everything possible. This is a case that's not a wrongful conviction. This is a case that's they got the right guy. I'm going through this, and somehow Lonnie, the groom sleeper's address is in her credit report. That's being one of her addresses. It's like, wait a second here. How does that happen? And it was shortly, probably within 2 months after the murder, or the attempted murder occurred. So they stole her ID, and there's ID. They're using it to buy stuff. And there was another family member involved too with that, but that person, they never prosecuted for anything. Here's another reason why this is not a wrongful conviction, is we had a lot of experts. We had an audio video expert, and he committed a lot of these crimes in his van. Well, the police don't look at all the evidence, so you gotta be careful about that. They don't look at all the evidence. And if they did, this case would have been over. Here he is, he's looking at the evidence. He's the one that caught it. Lonnie drops the camera. He picks it up real quick. Well, it's 2 or 3 seconds. It's down. Guess where it's facing? His face. It shows him right there during the course of the murder of one of the victims. But the police never saw that because they never looked at the entire video. It's the same thing. The lady that survived, they took her to a house where she said the guy went into at one point. It was 2 houses down from where the grim sleeper lives. She got the address wrong. The house, because of her trauma and at nighttime, she got it wrong. Normally what you do in the police, as an investigator, you want to canvass the whole block. Looking for, they never did that. They could have had him a long time ago. They could have prevented a lot of these murders from occurring, but they didn't do that either. So we were set out to defend him, but our defense investigation proved that he actually did do it all. So he was subsequently convicted and died in prison. So that wasn't even that. I think he died maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Any questions about any aspect of any of this?
I do have a question just related to something you said in your last case that you did. You were talking about the plea deal that the gentleman ended up taking, where it was manslaughter instead, like Suge Knight.
Suge Knight, yes.
Okay. From what I have researched and been told, that if you take a plea deal, it is more difficult for you to be able to invoke or to use your habeas corpus process, like or what have you, unless you can prove some sort of egregious misconduct. Would you say that that's true?
Absolutely, extremely hard. It has to be some kind of fraud on the prosecutors, police. They submitted fraudulent evidence to kind of manipulate you into pleading, something like, it has to be really bad.
What would you say, like, how would you say is the best way, especially to communicate to, like, our youth? Because a lot of our youth are being arrested now, and they don't know their rights, they don't know their laws, you're being questioned without an adult. Like, what would be the best way to disseminate, like, that you don't want to take a plea deal?
I would
If
say-
you're innocent, I guess.
I would say the best way to get it out there is through social media. You know, something like this where, you know, a video can be produced, and it can be produced at the level where the young people will, you know, be attracted to it and understand it.
Yeah, because like I've noticed, especially like in the area where I've done a lot of my work, there's a lot of gang activity, and a lot of the youth are involved in these gangs, and so, you know, you have them being arrested, you have them going through these court procedures, and you have these prosecutors that like to plea out a lot. And now you have, like, I get contacted by a lot of wrongfully incarcerated young men, and they say, oh, well, I was forced, intimidated, duress, undue influence, all this other stuff, but you took a plea deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, so how do we?
Well, here's part of the problem with that, is almost every single person that gets incarcerated in prison, they will make some kind of claim they didn't do it, they were set up, et cetera, and all that stuff.
Right.
That's common, okay? You gotta go through that and go, what's BS and what's not. And honestly, a lot of those people, because they got over-prosecuted, they think that they were just 100% innocent, which isn't true in most cases. You know, they were, like I said, they were probably pretty much guilty of 2 out of the 8, but they got convicted of all 8. And I understand how somebody can get in that mind state too, where they think that they were just done completely wrong and everything. So once you get past that, I think social media is the best way that young people would be able to understand. You know, it's not best to talk to the police. Number one, it's not best to do crimes. Number two, it's not best to associate with people that do crimes.
Right.
It's not, you know, it's the best thing to stay away from gangs and all that, but that gets so complex, you know, social issues on that. It's easier said than done. But if you find yourself in this situation, you know, don't hang yourself.
Right.
You know, in other words, if they want to, you know, come after you, make them prove their case. Don't give them the case. But the main thing is don't engage in that kind of behavior. That's the bottom line. That's easier said than done, because some people really have no options where they grow up that. Either they do it or they get, you know, beat up every single day. You know, parents don't care. Some parents are gangsters themselves. It gets complex. So, but that's all I have right now.
Thank you.
All right, take, use the restroom or something to stretch your legs, stand up. It'll take like 5 minutes, then we'll move into civil rights and some case law.
Is the camera on?
No, it's live. That's live the whole time.
Yeah.
Got you in it and everything. Are you done with yours? You done with yours?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you just pull it out. 3 o'clock. Yeah.
That was really interesting, Robert.
Hopefully.
I like. right name.
So how you doing?
I'm not good, Ari. I enjoyed your presentation. You have answered a lot of questions for me.
That's all right. We're here for so many things to say.
And it's like you have to basically, if you said prove, and some person, somebody basically can use hard facts and then kind of, cause part good for me, if it's a hard truth, it's a lie. So,
It's like by omission.
right.
Yeah. That's, there's no perfect system, and there's no perfect law enforcement officer, there's no perfect anything.
Right.
And there's, there's that room for that gray area.
Right.
It's always there, and everybody understands that.
Right.
It's the ones that go off the charts,
Right.
not only once, but they make it happen.
Yeah, a lion.
Those are the ones that, we used to look at how to do this. I think we did 100% people. I don't do that. It's impossible. We have to, read.
Like you want production.
Would you guys do kind of a turn measure up a little bit so it's not as cold?
I would not.
Taking the railroad thing.
I just came back, my family, from the military, my husband, college, and everything. He graduated from Wrongful, and so, just trying to help clean up.
These city and county governments, they've gotten away with things
For so
for
long.
100 years.
They don't like accountability.
They don't think they deserve it, and they want to do whatever they want. They don't care what anything.
You're right. That's true.
And again,
But then they complain about the community and the children. I say, well, if the kids can, you guys do.
Okay,
And
so
it's
it's
like, how you gonna take something to them and hold them accountable? It's not do as I say, not as I do.
Hey, Julie.
Good
We gotta
to see
say,
you.
that's
Great.
Thanks, thank you, you look good too.
Yeah, thanks. So,
it's
were you,
like
like, did you wanna come, like, is there anything
Like,
specific that you want to learn, or you just were curious, or?
Yeah, I was just curious, I guess, and because you were there.
That's awesome, thank you, I appreciate it.
I had to
every citizen.
play about it for a while, figure out a month or so, but, I finally.
What happens to the computer?
I registered kind of last night. I've been so busy.
All right.
Plus, just felt like last night.
Yeah, it was interesting, because I was saying that it was hard too, like, I didn't know if you would be interested in it for some reason.
It was interesting that you say, I was playing out. I'm like, I saw the announcement you made. Plumb line page. And also your profile. I saw the original on July 20, I think it was July 26. And I had saved the link from that post. I tried to use the QR codes for the research, but neither one of them worked. I'm like, I saved the original link for the Georgia transparency and
Red rock and roll.
I said, if you really want, I'm not sure if I should. I've got so much going on. I'll be honest, I got it. But if you really want to go, let her contact me, like send me like a invitation or something, like really, like, I wasn't sure. So that, I think that was my confirmation. You were a meeting. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Got everybody back. Everybody back, we ready to rock and roll? Right quick, all right, so we're gonna do, excuse me, bear with me a little bit if I kind of start to sound like I have a little bit of a lisp. Just had a wisdom tooth pulled, Thursday, so I'm still kind of recovering from that a little bit, so. So if I thought the talk kind of funny, you know, just try to bear with it. All right, so this is pretty much basic constitutional rights. Some may know it, some not. This is not to insult anybody's intelligence whatsoever. It is not. If you know the basic stuff, but I have found that a lot do not know what's legal, what's not legal when dealing with police, and also to support this and to back this up will be some case law. So we're going to get kind of almost pretty much in the nitty-gritty of certain case laws about if you're doing A, B, and C and the police say D, E, F, you can say G, H, I to cover yourself, and hopefully they'll think twice or not violate your rights. That's the whole point, is to not violate your rights. The biggest thing. All right, so again, disclaimer, not attorneys, you might legal advice. Contact any licensed attorney in your state. All information presented is for awareness and educational purposes only. And you'll see it a lot in my videos and my stories that I put on my YouTube channel, that it covers basically what I'm going to be talking about right here in a nutshell. If you don't know how to talk to the police, or you don't want to, like Mr. Robert said, you don't have to. You can shut up. You ain't got to tell them I plead the fifth. You can just shut up. You ain't got to say anything. All right. So, what is the basic rights of the people? Rights of liberty, freedom, and opinion of expression. So, I'm sorry, your name? Jamie? All right, so James, sorry. So me and James might have a different viewpoint. We may have a different expression and opinion. Is that wall gray or is it blue? It's blue. It's blue. I see blue. But doesn't that mean we can still get along? We can still get along. We can still hang out. We can talk. You can have a difference in that. That's what this kind of boils, kind of in a nutshell, what it's going to circle around. So, oops, I just think I just gave you the answer. Blank that out of your mind. How many amendments are in the Bill of Rights? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4? It's 10. It's your first 10. Those are the 10 that we're going to cover right quick. So that's how many amendments are in the Bill of Rights. So the biggest one, actually I think they're all pretty important. What does it say? So Bill of Rights, it spells out the Americans' right of retaliation to their government. It guarantees civil rights and liberties. This was put in place not to have government control you, but it's for you, it's for you to check on your government, your rights against your government, like freedom of speech, press, religion. It sets rules for due process of law and reserves all powers not delegated to the federal government to the people. And to the people meaning your basic constitutional rights. The First Amendment. What are we doing right now? We have assembled. We have peacefully assembled right here. And what am I doing? Free speech. What Mr. Robert did, free speech. And another big one, and we're going to cover in the next one, is press. And I won't touch on that yet. I'll touch on that when we get into the other one. But it's press and religion. So it doesn't matter what religion you practice, you're free to practice whichever religion you want to. Second Amendment, I'm sure everybody knows what the Second Amendment is, right to bear arms. I don't even need to go into that. The third prevents from government forcing homeowners and allow soldiers to use their homes. Third Amendment. Everybody familiar with the Fourth Amendment? Unreasonable search and seizure. So if you do, nod, shake your head, yes, no, I won't go. I won't, like I said, I won't. So we have Homer here. So the Fifth Amendment. So do you think Homer's exercising his fifth right here? Okay. So also, it also covers that a person cannot be tried twice for the same offense, double jeopardy. Take away without just compensation. People have the right to get self-incriminating and cannot be imprisoned without due process of law, fair procedures, and trials. And I think Robert said this, I'm not sure. If I'm the investigating officer and I'm interviewing you, interrogating you, whatever, and hey, did you rob that liquor store? No, you didn't. Well, we got video of you doing it. Yeah, you got video. Yeah, we do. It's all over the place. We got video of you doing it. And let's say they didn't have it, and you confessed. Is that a legal confession? Yes, because the U.S. Supreme Court's ruled that law enforcement can lie to you. They're allowed. Yes, they are allowed to lie to you and say, hey, like Ms. Kenyatta, we got video of you doing that. Be like, what you talking about? Well, we got video of you doing it. So it's more to coerce, not really coerce, but to get a confession. And then like what Robert says, show it to me. Show it to me. Show me the evidence. So basically with the fifth, you ain't got to answer no questions, whether in custody, out of custody, or anything. You have a right to zip it up. And then also, by you talking, what's in the Miranda, there's one big thing in there when the police read you your Miranda rights. Everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. What you say can be used against you. Now, if you sit there and shut up, can silence be used against you? No, it can't. If you sit there and be quiet, no, silence cannot be used against you. And they will use it against you. The Sixth Amendment, this is something that I probably want to spin back up again. A speedy and public trial and trial by impartial jury. Everybody right now I'll use the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit as an example. Everybody sitting in jail right now, and everybody out on bond that's been either indicted or the charges, or they've been formally charged by the district attorney. And that's probably hundreds, maybe thousands. What if everybody filed their Sixth Amendment within the same week or 2 weeks? What would happen?
They'd have to hire more prosecutors.
Because I don't know about Chattahoochee, but I know the Coweta Judicial Circuit has the court calendar once a week every month. They have court week. So there is an OCGA code section in there that says in every judicial circuit's different as far as the court calendars go. But if you file this right here, if everybody files it unanimously, it's gonna do either one, like you said, you gotta hire a whole lot more people, or it's just gonna break the justice system. Because by the end of the second court calendar, by law, they will have to drop those charges, if you haven't gone to trial. Not scheduled for trial, you have to be tried. You have to be tried within the second. So if the court calendars are, I'm just gonna use this, and I don't take this to heart, but if it's 6 months is a court calendar. So in July, it picks up for the second court calendar. You file your 6th in June. If you're not in trial by December 31st, the state's got to dismiss your charge. It's an, I don't remember, I should have put that OCGA code section in here, but that is an OCGA code section. 7th Amendment extends the right to a jury trial in federal cases. The 8th, excessive bail and fines and cruel and unusual punishment. This covers if you're arrested just for loitering, so if you have a $2,500 bond, that's less than the DUI, it's like $1,000. So excessive bond and cruel and unusual punishment. This one here mostly pertains to like your jails and your prisons. That's where a lot of these federal lawsuits come to play for the 8th Amendment. And mainly the big scope of it is medical. A lot of people file medical lawsuits against jails and prisons. The 9th Amendment states listing specific rights in the Constitution does not mean people have the other rights that have not been spelled out. So you need, that's pretty much it.
Providing for future amendments.
Yeah, it doesn't say in the Constitution, like I'm talking about the Constitution itself. It doesn't say like you have a right to record police. Does it say that word for word? No. Do you have a right to free press? Yes. And that includes recording the police. So it doesn't have to be exactly verbatim about that. So the 10th Amendment, federal government only has those powers delegated by the Constitution. It's not listed. Belongs to the states or the people. Now this is where your, excuse me, this is where your city ordinance is, your county ordinance is, and policy, and you'd be surprised how many people's been arrested for a policy violation. Do you have to talk to the police? And I don't know if Georgia does the tiers. I've never heard of them doing like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that sort of thing. So like, if the police come up to you to have a casual conversation, hey, what's going on? Oh man, had me a Sprite earlier. How's that Sprite doing? You can talk to them if you want, or you can just sit there and stare at him, turn around and walk off. So you cannot be legally arrested for refusing to identify yourself unless you're suspected of a crime, about to commit a crime, or did commit a crime. So if I'm an officer and I come up and I say, James, what's up, man? You doing all right today? Let me see your ID. Give me your ID. Why don't you give me your ID? You don't want to? Okay, you're going to jail. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. They have to suspect you of a crime about to commit or in the commission of. Suspicion's not a crime. Oh, you just look suspicious. Oh, good for you. That's what happened at Talbot County with me. You see how well that worked out for them. So looking suspicious is not grounds for you to have to identify yourself. You should never talk to police without an attorney. You know, police are trained to obtain confessions, admissions, and inconsistencies. And back to what I said, remember, cops are allowed to lie. They're allowed to lie to you. It's ruled by the Supreme Court. They are allowed to tell you all the lies in the book to get you to incriminate yourself. But the best thing about the one best thing is Robert hit with the body cams, and also my camera and the live stream. I'm going back to the Talbot County. Guess what will save you? The video. The video evidence. Always, always, always record police interactions. And it could be nothing. It could be a small 2-minute conversation. You have a right to record it. And if you're being suspected of a crime, I would highly recommend record it. Or if you get pulled over on the side of the road on a traffic stop, I would highly recommend record it. Because if you go to court, if it goes to court, who's the judge going to, a municipal court judge? Who do you think the judge is going to believe? You or the officer? I'll believe the officer over you. But what if you have video? That tells a different story. Video's going to tell a different story. So always remember that. You do not have to talk to police. Can I film and record the police? Yes, you can. You are allowed to film, but again, the First Amendment does not sacrifice the Georgia hands-free law. So don't be driving down the road with your phone up, recording the police as you're driving a vehicle. You'll probably get a ticket for that, and you'll probably have to pay that fine. But if you have a dash cam, I highly recommend putting dash cams in your vehicles. I got a dash cam in my vehicle, and putting dash cams in your vehicles. So, anybody in the U.S., United States, to record police when they're performing their duties in public. Now, if they let you into a restricted area and authorize you to record, then you can record. But if you're in any restricted area, I wouldn't recommend recording. I wouldn't go into any restricted areas unless they give you consent that you can record. If you notice some of my say, hey, can I come in here? Was restricted. Oh, yeah, you still come in. Can I keep recording when I come in there? Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. Let's go into the restricted area. So and then some of these case laws, we'll get into it. That's going to, and you'll see how these case laws, as well as from different circuits, start to back each other. They start to back each other up. Excuse me. So just some tips. Take all of them. Take one of them. Don't take none of them. You ain't gonna hurt my feelings. You ain't gonna hurt my feelings at all. Always record interaction with police and public officials. You don't have to answer questions. Ask police for a warrant if officers are trying to enter your property to search. That's very important. They come knocking on your door. Hey, can we come? Of course, you can let them in and search if you want to. It's totally up to you. It's your house. You do what you want. Yes.
Yeah, I think when you recorded your ride to jail at Talbot County, I think that's the first time it's ever been done. I looked the internet, I could not find anyone else who recorded their own ride to jail.
Yes, actually, yeah, now that's one thing that I guess the investigator did properly. He violated my rights politely. But yes, I live streamed the entire ride in the back of the police car. I'm out the window talking to the police chief as he's driving me. I'm sure y'all probably seen it. Always politely and professionally inform police if they feel you're violating, if you feel they're violating your rights. Get into an argument with them, start yelling at them, start turning it into a physical altercation. What's that going to do for you? It's going to do nothing for you. It's going to do nothing for you, but maybe get some more charges added you got to worry about beating later on down the road. Because on the side of the road or out there dealing with police, that's not the time to hold court. By all means, politely and professionally tell them, hey, you can't do this because of this, because this case law says this, and now you made them aware, like, hey, I'm allowed to film. You can't be filming me. Of course I can. I'm in a public space. Well, it's against the law. What law? Well, I don't have a book right now. Okay, well, this case law says I can. Whoa. So they got one or two choices. Either A, they're going to turn around and go back to work and leave you alone, or B, they're going to trespass you from the property or arrest you. So again, always exercise your rights in a peaceful and respectful manner. I can't stress that enough. Peaceful. Read case law pertaining to your state, including U.S. Supreme Court case law. Be familiar with the laws, city, and county ordinances. Questions about this? Yes, sir.
I have a question about, I requested a ride-along with my local police department and requested that I be able to video while I was riding along. They denied my request, saying that nobody can record while riding in a police vehicle because of the GCIC or GCIS or the computer they use run background checks, that it's, there's supposedly a state law that says no video in a police car, and I'm like, well, how come people do it? How do other people do it?
I did it.
Yeah, I know.
I did. I went on a ride along with the city of LaGrange, and I filmed from the passenger seat, riding along with Del Moro, Del Santos, I forgot his name. He was a great cop, by the way. He's probably one of the good ones. And so, but before I started doing, and I wasn't live streaming, I was doing static recording, and he mentioned that, and I was like, I'm not here to record anything on your GCIT terminal. If it just so happens to get it, that part will not be released. You know, that sort of thing. So I would say yes, because inside the compounds of the police car, there is a GCIC terminal. But however, if you're on a ride along, they should be doing things out there that would have them having to keep going back to it. So and that's my viewpoint. That's just that's opinionated. Should they let you ride along with a video camera? Heck yeah, I think they should have. Because it promotes the transparency of it. It'll record the interactions you have with that officer. And because if a police car is parked out here, let's say there's one parked out here, can you take your phone, walk up to the window, and just start recording inside the car and record that computer screen? Yeah, you can.
That's not what this says.
Yeah, you can.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you can see with your eyes.
What you can see with your eyes. I mean, don't open the door or don't put the camera through the window and start doing that. But a public sidewalk for this is a big one. Because the guy got arrested I just recently did a video on it. They arrested him for recording the police car. Was it New Jersey? I think it was New Jersey. And so he's standing there just recording the cop car. So the cop comes out, flips out on him, and he's like, you can't record the car, But looking at the video, looking at the body cam video, he's on a public sidewalk. Right there on a public sidewalk. So, and I like to know that, by the way. I'm actually curious to what that says about recording inside police cars, because I record inside police cars all the time.
Well, it says you can record conversations while inside a police car if you're party to the conversation. And it says as long as your recording does not physically interfere with the officer's duty. And I do not see a Georgia ordinance that says that you cannot record.
There you go. That answers it right there. If you're inside the cop car and your videoing can't physically interfere with the officer. So you standing, let's say this is the driver's seat here, his computer terminal. Let's use you as an example right quick. So you're the cop sitting there, there's your computer terminal. I'm over here on a public sidewalk. I'm sorry, everybody, y'all can't see me, but I'm over here on a public sidewalk, and I'm just standing here like this. Thanks, up. You know, just do it all this. Is that legal? Of course, 100% legal. Am I physically doing anything to alter that police officer's ability to perform their job? No. I'm standing on a public sidewalk holding a camera. Literally just holding a camera. And I see a lot of people go to jail for, that's obstruction, that's this, that's that, that's this, that's that. But cases get dropped left and right for that, especially being on a public sidewalk or in front of City Hall. If there's anywhere to peacefully exercise your civil liberties, would be on a public sidewalk, right out in front of City Hall. Go up and start recording the cop car. Don't touch the car. Don't open the doors. Don't fiddle around with it. Don't mess with it. But simply just standing there, taking a picture of it. What law would that be? I guess. Like, if I'm standing there taking a picture of a police car, what law would I be violating? What law? What actual law would I be violating? I can think of one that would get thrown out there, but it doesn't stand. Loitering.
Oh, okay.
You're loitering now. Well, what's the definition of, now let's think of what's the definition of loitering? Being in a place without any reasonable purpose or manner or something, you're there with no purpose. What's your purpose? You're there recording your government. And that has been ruled on that the the Supreme Court, the 11th Circuit has ruled on it that press is legitimate. It's legitimate business. It is, and we'll get more into that in a bit with this. Disclaimer again, I don't need to cover that again. All right, contents, 11th Circuit case law and your rights to record. All right, Smith versus City of Cumming, Georgia. This is out of the 11th Circuit. So the 11th Circuit covers Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. So if you get anything in Alabama or you get anything in Florida, you can cite 11th Circuit case law, even though this is out of Cumming, Georgia, for Smith versus Cumming. This is a blueprint. This is a foundational law in 2000. There's there's case law before that backs this up, but this is the one that is most heavily cited. This gives you, not the press, you as the individual, whether you're press, independent journalist, whatever you want to call yourself, the big dummy on the corner news, whatever you want to call yourself, and don't a taxpayer. This says that you can record police and government officials in the performance of their official duties in public. All right, so the background, the plaintiff, James and Barbara Smith, Cumming, Georgia, police chief denied them the ability to videotape conduct, the claimed violation of First Amendment rights. Was it a First Amendment violation? Of course it was. Legal issues. Do citizens have a constitutional right to record public officials, particularly police, performing their duties in public? Of course you do. It's backed up not only by the Constitution for right to free press, but also case law. There's more, not just Smith v. Cumming, there's a lot of more case law that backs it up in the 11th Circuit and also outside the 11th Circuit that's like the 5th, the 5th, I believe the 9th, have used Smith versus Cumming. They've used it before. They've used an outside case law source for that. Courts holding again, yes, the 11th Circuit explicitly recognized the First Amendment right to record matters of public interest. Citizens may photograph or videotape police conduct, this right subject to reasonable time, place, manner, and restrictions. Now, let's say you're out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's say 3 a.m. You're behind the Ingalls in Hogansville with your video camera recording. So do you think now the officer has a reasonable articulable suspicion to ID you and find out what you're doing? Of course they do. What if they've had break-ins there? Time, place, manner. Always keep that in mind. If you notice, I do all of my stories during the day when it's open for business. When the government opens its doors for business. Because you can't claim the loitering. Well, they can claim it. They can try. All right, so some key factors in this decision: transparency and accountability of government actors. Recording as a form of speech and press activity, no press credentials needed. We're going to get that hard too. Everyone is the press. Right was clearly established by 2000. Impact of the cause. Like I said, binding precedent in Georgia, Florida, and Alabama, which is the 11th Circuit, cited across the U.S., reinforces both First Amendment rights and citizens' oversight of police. Takeaway, Smith v. Cumming, again, bedrock case. Citizens don't need press credentials, a key tool for accountability and civil rights advocacy. Let's touch on this.
Yeah.
Citizens don't need credentials. Do you need credentials to go out and record your police and put it on the internet? No, you don't need. Where would I go? Or where would you go? Where would you go to get press credentials?
I don't know.
Print them off at your computer at home. I mean, nowhere. What do you need to do to be a private investigator in the state of Georgia? License, insurance, just more stuff. Or a chiropractor, or an RN, or that sort of stuff. So where is it on there, on the Secretary of State's website, that you would go to pay that annual fee so that you can get a nice little paper that says you're a member of the press and pay them hundreds of dollars to do it. You let me know if it's on there, because I really want to know if it's on there. That'd be far-fetched if that's on there. Closing quote. The First Amendment protects the rights to gather information about what public officials do on public property, and specifically a right to record matters of public interest. That's a direct quote from that case law. Influence in the 11th Circuit. Here's some more case law that backs that up. Toole versus City of Atlanta 2020, court from the right to record police, Casey versus City of Miami Beach. Established that officers may be denied qualified immunity if they interfere with recording. It doesn't say it's a guarantee, it just says may be denied qualified immunity. Blake versus Cummins out of the First Circuit, right to record police, well established. Fields versus City of Philadelphia out of the Third Circuit, again confirms recording is protected speech. Turner versus Driver adopted reasoning consent with Smith. So what Smith you think they're talking about with that? Smith versus Cummins. They're citing some outside federal court districts, appellate courts are citing that Smith versus Cummins case law. It's very, very powerful. Read it. Read the whole case. It's very interesting. So plaintiffs, like again, I cite it all the time. Plaintiffs routinely cite Smith v. Cummins, use it to argue that rights were clearly established to overcome qualified immunity. Forms a foundational citation in First Amendment retaliation claims. You're recording me, I don't like it, I'm gonna throw you in jail. Retaliation. Because you're simply putting the video camera on. But I guarantee you go in that courthouse, any court, most courthouses, I think I've been in a couple that don't have them, but what happens when you go into, I know, I'm gonna use Troup County Courthouse for example. What happens when you go in Troup County Courthouse?
You can't record here.
No, I'm recording there all the time. In Troup County Courthouse, not in the courtroom, the courthouse.
Got you.
There's cameras. There's cameras everywhere. Who they record? They're recording you. Why can they record you but you can't record them? Why?
That's a good point.
What if you walk into the courthouse and go, hey y'all need to turn all these off, turn these cameras off. I don't want to be recorded today. What are they gonna do? They'll laugh at you. That's for our security. Okay, well, my camera's for my security too. It's a great response. Or don't say anything to them. Just look at them like a deer in the headlights. In the Toole versus City of Atlanta, the court relied on Smith to deny qualified immunity. Casey versus City of Miami Beach. His intent to block filming cited against Smith. McDonough versus Fernandez run the plaintiff's pointed to Smith to show rights was clearly established. What do you think the biggest thing on that was why it was clearly established, if you read the case law? Because guess where he was? He was on a public sidewalk. Right there on a public sidewalk. All right, Blake versus Cuniff, I probably butchered that name up. Again, cited Smith, Fields versus Alabama. Relied in part to Smith's confirmed. Turner versus Driver, consistent with Smith expanding nationwide precedents. So if you go to maybe Google Scholar and see how many, not just the 11th Circuit, but how many other outside circuits have cited that Smith becoming case law, you'll be surprised at how much stuff, a lot of stuff shows up. There's a lot of stuff that shows up. Why it still matters, courts continue citing it, used to overcome qualified immunity argument, essential to protecting citizen journalism and public accountability in 1983 lawsuits. It's definitely a powerful case to use. The First Amendment protects the right to gather information about what public officials do on public property. Is Walmart public? Is this public property?
Yes.
Yeah. And got into it with a lot of officers before because they throw that analogy at me of, well, you can't go do this in Walmart. Of course I can. I can walk right into Walmart with my video camera and start recording. I sure can. But when they ask me to leave, I actually have to leave. You know, if the staff and the manager asks me to leave, if I don't, then you show up, then I'll go with you and it'd be legal. So, well, no, it's saying, no, this is public. A lot of cops get public and private property confused. What you can do on public, you can't necessarily do it on private property. You can go in there and start recording in Walmart or Chick-fil-A or something, but as soon as they actually leave, you gotta leave. Everyone is depressed, but no credentials required. We've done hit that, supported by 11 circuits and U.S. Supreme Court case law. And I just love it. I love it because they say, or officers or public officials say, you don't have press credentials. You don't have press credentials. You know what a good reply to that is? It's funny. Okay, all right, I'll level with you. I'll pull out my press credentials as soon as you can show me the credentials of what religion you practice. Or better yet, where's your credentials so that you can speak freely? Where's that? It don't exist. It does not exist. Because you don't need press credentials. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to practice religion, freedom to assemble. Where's our credentials for us to peacefully assemble here today? That's a good one to throw back out.
Sorry, I don't carry a copy of the United States Constitution with me, but if you'd like to schedule an appointment for us to go to the Library of Congress, I'm more than happy to be able to show you that.
First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech, and the press rights are individual, not limited to professional reporters. The rights are individual, not limited to professional reporters. What's the difference between mainstream media showing up in a tie and tux and looking all fly, gold chains and everything, just all looking good, coming in and asking questions to the government, versus somebody with a pair of basketball shorts, t-shirt, and a pair of flip-flops coming in there asking about government?
Who's paying for them to be there?
Yeah, it shouldn't be any different. Shouldn't be no different at all. Again, protects the right, and I'm hammering this. I'm hammering this Smith v. Cumming for a reason. Because I do want you to, you don't have to. You can blow it off if you want to, but read it. Just read it. It's very interesting. It tells a very, very good story. Citizens may photograph and videotape police conduct. No credentials are required. So I'm thinking about making up a little fake press pass like J-Town Press. You seen hers? A little crayon press pass. Funny. More 11th Circuit authority. Tool versus City Limits. Casey, again, take away the right to record, right to people, not just professional media. Your thing, what is it called? Hog Media?
Hogtown News.
Hogtown News. Is it professional?
I think so.
Exactly. It's yours. You're putting out information about the city of Hogansville. Is it professional? Of course it is. It's information that you're putting out information that people may want to know. You may get some people that say, we don't care about that. Why did you post that? But I guarantee you got somebody that didn't want to read that. I guarantee you did. You got at least one person that wanted to see it and wanted to know the information about it, because that will trigger other stuff that will get more tips in for you and everything. U.S. Supreme Court case laws. Now we're hitting U.S. Supreme Court. Bransenberg v. Hayes. No special privilege for the press. Press rights belong to all. Meaning where an individual can go freely, the press can go. In a post office. In a tag office. Public lobby I'm talking about. Don't venture into restricted areas and you probably get in trouble for that. Lovell versus City of Griffin. The liberty of the press, and these are quotes right out of the case law. The liberty of the press is not confined to newspapers and periodicals. You can pick your phone up and they'll start recording the government, do a story on it, however you want to, whatever you want to say. Write whatever you want to write. Diss them, promote them, however you want to do it. First National Bank versus Velody, freedom of speech applies regardless of the corporate and individual speaker. So a big corporation doesn't have any more power than the individual person, the individual taxpayer, the individual American, to get up and redress your government, talk to your city council, and to pretty much tell the police what you think about it. Why credentials don't matter. The Constitution protects us fundamental, not the title of everyone recording or published information. As the press, credentials cannot be used as a gatekeeping mechanism. Like I just said, hey, you can't record here. Why? You ain't got no, I don't see no press credentials. And again, you'll hear me say it a lot of times, okay, I will show you press credentials as soon as you can show me your credentials to practice whatever religion it is you practice. And usually that kind of shuts them up, or you see them start to think, and it's like, some of y'all might know what the dial-up is, the AOL, that kind of starts going off in their head. And it baffles me, it really does. Citizen journalists use this right daily. Courts cite cases to protect ordinary people, recording police public meetings and officials without credentials. The public still checks government power. It's your duty to check it. Questions?
So can
Comments, complaints?
So can you explain to us, like, I mean, I know that I know, but I don't know if they do. Can you explain to us why case law is important when it comes to us doing, like, us doing the investigative side of things?
Because like case law, it makes a decision on something that's happened. So we'll use Smith v. Cumming again. So Smith v. Cumming was filming and recording the police said no and arrested him, right? Well, let's say I'm here in Hamilton and I'm recording the Hamilton Police Department. The Hamilton Police Department come to me and arrest me because I'm recording them, and they say I can't record them. I go to jail, I bond out. The case gets, the accusation gets filed. Well, guess what happened? This already happened before. So you can cite that case law in a motion to dismiss or anything that says, hey, Smith v. Cumming says, and it's already been ruled in the federal courts, that I'm allowed to record the police. Y'all can't stop me from recording. I don't care how much you don't like it at all. It doesn't matter what you like or don't like for the municipality. The federal courts and the U.S. Constitution says I can. So case laws are very important, but you got to be careful of what case law, like you don't want to use Smith versus Cumming for robbing a bank or something like that. You know,
It has to be particular.
it's got to be particular to what happened to you around the same circumstances of like Smith v. Cumming record. Like for like my arrest in Talbot County, Smith v. Cumming would be perfect for it because I was recording. I was recording public officials in the course of their duties, and also some other Fourth Amendment. Terry v. Ohio is another big one. I know we didn't cover Terry v. Ohio, but Terry v. Ohio, that's a big one too, for when I was searched and seized. So I hope that answers your question, or if that answers everybody's question. Any other questions, gripes, comments, complaints?
When you gonna do a silent, can you do a silent audit?
No.
You can't?
I don't think I can. I don't think I can. That's been brought up to me before. You should, and I want to. It's like I want to, but it's just like, man, it's like I just want to say, just leave me alone. I'm just trying to record my building, you know, our building, the people's building, you know. Who I can try though. I can try.
I'd like to see you try.
That's you know what? That's a goal of mine to hit now.
Okay.
Silent, not say anything.
Fifth Amendment Russ.
Yeah, not say nothing, but just, or on Martin, you know, Bruh Man, the old show Martin and Martin Lawrence. You remember Bruh Man? Like that's just walking over the camera and just, you know, and just be like, just, you know, why are you filming? What are you recording? Just let them go. And just keep walking. Maybe like that or something. I don't know. Maybe that. But that concludes my spiel. And if nobody's got any other questions, I'm going to hand it to Ms. Julia Pierce to cover the open records. And do you bring your laptop up here? Or?
I'd like to, yes, and
Okay.
if we could take a quick little break too, because I gotta go take a little.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop at the girlies run.
Where is the trash? Taking 5.
Yes,
Oh, thank you.
you.
We're taking 5, and we will be right back.
Maybe quick.
I had a lot of people on there now.
Excuse me, what's the name of your show again?
Ma'am?
What's the name of your show again? I mean, your
What's-
production?
Facebook, Hogtown News.
Hey, since there's quite a few of y'all on there right now, hey, Facebook, Hogtown News, it's it's a news media for the city of Hogansville. So if you live in the area, have family there, or just want to know what's going on because we take a part in that stuff, Then,
We started it about
Hogtown,
5 months ago.
HOG,
We had like 700 followers, but
is it,
I concentrate on just Hogan.
is it HOG spell, how it spell, how it sounds, just nothing additional, or?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll get the link from Mr. Jimmy, and I'll post it on I'll post it on the YouTube channel so that you guys can click on and go check him out for stuff that he's exposing over there in Hogansville. So as Ms. Julia gets ready, we'll cover some in-depth open records and
Chamber of Commerce has got a candidate forum scheduled in October. There's 9 total candidates, 2 council seats and the mayor seat. And there's 9 total candidates. So they're gonna do a forum in October. But I thought that was too much to try to cram into one night. So I had scheduled 2 candidate forums, one for the council members and one for the mayor. And got kind of like a citizens committee together to finalize the moderator, the format and all that. Well, they couldn't agree on who they wanted the moderator to be, what kind of format, and they kept bringing in outside influences. You could tell every meeting we had, somebody else had something else to say that somebody else had told them and all that, so it just got so crazy, so I kind of.
Really? Oh, wow. So I have a question for you. It was brought to my attention that the current mayor was getting funding from the city for a nonprofit that he's on the executive board for.
There is a nonprofit in Hogansville that he was associated with, but he has since took his name off of it.
Right, after they got funding.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's one thing, one of the people that's running for mayor against him is definitely gonna bring up. And we had a guy that owns some houses in Hogansville coming to the city council meetings that was bringing a lot of that out, but they stopped letting him come.
Why they do that?
Because they don't wanna be transparent.
Well, no.
That's what we.
Accountability.
So,
Wow, so they can't legally make him stop coming, right?
yeah, they don't have to let anybody speak at the council meetings. It's not, yeah, I've investigated that. They don't legally have to let you speak at the council meeting.
That's weird. I thought that would fall under freedom of speech.
If they let you speak, you can speak what you want to, but they don't have to let you speak. There's not a law, a Georgia law that says that they have to let you speak.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Let me run out here and take a break with Russ right quick.
But the problem also with that is they cannot discriminate based on the content of their speech. So if they're letting other people speak, they're gonna, because you have a reputation of talking about stuff they don't like to hear, that creates a problem.
Okay. What I was telling you about earlier, the case in Meriwether County, I found out when I requested open records from the state details right from the start, they gave, 2 nonprofits that was also in Talbot County, and the sheriff participated in, they gave each of those rural areas from Meriwether, Harris County, and Talbot County, almost $1 million to serve kids, but they serve nobody.
Yeah, it's
It
common.
happens a lot. It happens in Muscogee County too.
Oh, really? That's so sad.
It happened in Grantville, they got $350,000, federal grant, opened a food bank. That was 3 years ago. No food bank, and that's for the families there that are low income. No food bank.
Right. Right.
And one of the things that I started seeing was they were getting the crime grants. All of it. And so what I did is I requested all of the crime grants that were being given out. And then, like, they gave me a USB drive full, of course I had to finagle it because they don't want to produce a lot of that stuff. But, you know, when you start questioning those things and you start taking periodicals and you put all of that stuff together, you start seeing, well, wait a minute, if crime is increasing, then what are the crime rates? And then I started seeing that, okay, so we have a specific crime prevention board in Muscogee County that is actually like it's in the city charter. But then we ended up having this cure violence program come in, which was through the Department of Health and Human Services. And they were getting paid all this money as we go and we kind of try to quell dissent, you know, whatever, when there's crime involved. But it's like, well, if the sheriff is over the crime, like he's responsible for crime prevention, then why do we have on the municipal side a crime prevention board? And why do we have crime grants going to all of these businesses that are friends of nepotism and all that? And yet we still have crime that's on the rise. And so you start having the eyebrow that goes, wait a minute, are we, yeah,
There's
so.
a prime example currently in Chicago where the administration wants to send in National Guard and federal agents. Right? But they learned that the federal government also gives $800,000 a year for crime prevention programs. So that means if there's no crime, they don't get the $800,000 a year, which means their nonprofits and buddies aren't gonna get paid. So it goes none of them anywhere cares about the people. Whether it's in Talbot County or Chicago or Los Angeles, they care about themselves.
So I have a question for you before you start. With the Open Records Act, if you discover a crime, or if you discover a crime through an open records request, and report it to authorities, but they don't do anything.
I can go over a little bit of that because there's really no cut and dry answer for that as an independent citizen or citizen journalist, unless you have access to certain authorities. But I have noticed, this is my experience, I have noticed that a lot of authorities, even if you do report it, they don't care.
Right.
They don't want to do anything about it.
Right.
So at that point, I just collect names.
Okay.
And if they're responsible for negligence or whatever, then I just keep a case file on that. And then if like an investigation comes up, or a lot of times I've sent certain information, especially if it's a crime that, you know, maybe there's conspiracy involved or whatever, I've sent it to the FBI before.
Okay.
And so there's actually an investigation that's been going on in Columbus through the financial department, or the financial stuff that's going on with the business licenses, that originally that whole thing kind of, let me just say this. There's two different investigations that have kind of come out of that, but a lot of that information that I have seen come out of there is because of some of the requests and some of the evidence that I sent to the FBI.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't want to take 100% like credit for that, but I do see some similarities in some of the things that they have been revealing along with what I have sent. So.
So one last question. If you request for specific documents and you don't receive it, that's a violation, right?
Yes, and I'm gonna go over that too. Yeah.
If I can add to her, I think you do get a lot of these agencies that will not do anything to try to report crime that officials are doing. I think the best remedy is YouTube, like Russ, is expose them.
Right.
That's all you can do is just expose them, embarrass them, put it out there, show to the public they're crooks, and I think you gotta keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because GBI will do nothing, DAs do nothing, and sheriffs, they're not part of the problem, they do nothing.
right, well, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Julia Pierce, and I am with Plumline Productions. That's my own business that I started a couple of years ago. Just a little bit about me. I came to Georgia in 1994. I was in the 9th grade at the time. Excuse me, I was in the 8th grade at the time. So I've been kind of a Columbus citizen for the most part of my life, except for a few years here and there where I was in Smith Station. So Columbus has kind of been my home, and this is where a lot of what I do was where it came from. And really, I just kind of want to preface this that this is not something that I chose to do. This is something that kind of found me. And I think about how a lot of times when we as just human beings are going through life, there's a lot of things that we don't pay much attention to because it doesn't personally touch our lives. And so for me, I was personally touched in 2016 by our judicial system. I was arrested. I was falsely arrested for harassment, online harassment. It was technically a phone harassment charge. And I had a very difficult time getting any kind of justice. I started seeing what looked like the courts being stacked against me. I started seeing my civil rights being violated. I started seeing that no matter how much evidence I had to prove that I was innocent, none of it was being taken, it wasn't being taken seriously. I hired an attorney. The attorney took my money, and later on it seemed to be that he was also working against me. And so I had no choice but to learn the law for myself. So after 2 years of being in the criminal court system, I was able to get some assistance from someone who was dear to me. His name is Paul Nally. He just passed recently this year, but he was a former justice of the peace, and he taught me a lot about constitutional law. I didn't know a whole lot about the Constitution, and once I started learning about the Constitution, I realized the importance of every single citizen in the United States, especially in Georgia, to know what your constitutional rights are. Because I started seeing that a lot of us were being violated, and it was because of our own ignorance. And for those of you that don't know what ignorance means, it just means that you're unaware of something. It doesn't mean you're stupid or illiterate. It just means that you're unaware of something. So, during that time, I also had some frivolous eviction cases. I had to learn landlord-tenant law, and so I kind of did a little advocacy there. But what really got me into the Georgia Open Record started in 2018 when I had a friend of mine who was running as a mayoral candidate, and he asked me to kind of just assist him on the campaign. At the time, I was kind of just a gopher. I did paperwork, I was going to do flyers, helped with campaign disclosures. And it seemed that the people who were his campaign manager were kind of coerced and intimidated off of his campaign. So his campaign was about exposure of corruption. He used to work for the IT department inside of the government, and so he was aware of a lot of things that were going on that needed transparency, especially when it came to financial records. So, he was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Well, my mom and dad always raised me, hey, you can do anything, you can always learn. My dad has been very much an advocate for educate yourself. So I was like, well, whatever I can do, I can do. I will say that during that time, I found myself at the brunt of what I consider a smear campaign. And it really came at what started all of this for me, because I was literally handed an entire case file on the stalking strangler in Georgia. And there are lots of different conjectures about whether the gentleman was guilty or not guilty, but I can tell you 100% looking at documentation that there is question that the things that were spoken over him may not actually be correct. And so when you start seeing fabricated documents, and you start seeing fabricated DNA reports, and you start seeing DAs not want to order DNA testing you start kind of questioning, well, wait a minute, like, why is there so much obstruction that seems to be going on? So I believe that Carlton Gary, which is this gentleman's name, was innocent based off of what I saw. And I caught a lot of, I caught a lot of flack for that. But during that time, as I was also helping this gentleman on this campaign, I started seeing that there were some election issues. I started seeing that there were some questionable things that were taking place in the Muscogee County elections. So I was kind of looking into how can I fix this? Like, what can I do? So during that time, because I had found out that Carlton, in my opinion, based off of what I saw, was innocent, I decided that I was going to do whatever I could to expose the people that did this to him, but I was also going to do what I needed to do to find justice for him. So during this time, of course, because I've got something that I'm doing that's considered risky business, I'm not getting a lot of assistance from my government. I'm being even more, I would say that I was being more inconvenienced. I was dealing with a lot of other things. And so I start seeing all of these different government people who are introducing suspicion. Like, why are you holding this back from me? Why are you not doing that? So my business came from Carlton Gary, the Stalking Strangler story, where I started actually advocating for wrongfully incarcerated black men in Georgia. And there are a lot of them. But during that time as well, I was picked up by a sheriff's candidate in Muscogee County, and he asked me to do unofficial legal research for him. So that included doing crime statistics, that included doing financial records. There were people that were coming to us that were exposing certain government officials. And if you say that you represent truth, which I do, you should always be seeking the truth. You should be looking for evidence. You should be seeking facts, because I'm a firm believer, and my parents raised me, that your word is your bond. So you always want to make sure that you are speaking in truth, that you are honorable, that you have integrity, and that people can always trust your word. So that being said, I learned, because this gentleman, he actually taught me some tips and tricks about how to do Georgia open records. And so I just kind of wanted to present a few things to you guys that I think will be helpful. And if you need assistance with them afterwards, if you want to reach out to me or whatever, I'm more than happy to help. But ideally, the whole idea about Georgia Open Records is to empower each of us as citizens to, just like Russ was talking about, hold your government accountable. It's your money that they're using. These buildings that they fund really come from your taxes. So we have an obligation to make sure they're spending our money wisely. We have an obligation to elect our officials wisely. So, all right. So without further ado, all right. So we are, this is kind of just a highlight of the agenda. We're just going to go through a little introduction, which we did. We're going to be doing an overview of the Open Records Act. I've cited that Open Records statute for you. What kind of information can I request? That's the question. Like, what can I request? There's also a part in here like, what can't I request? So what is the procedure for requesting information? I'm going to give you some examples, and then we're going to go over some takeaways. All right, now I do want to say here, you will hear in Georgia that this is the Open Records request, okay? We have the Open Records Act. But this is very similar. You'll hear people also call it a FOIA, federal, oh my goodness, I just had a blank there. It's basically it's an information request. So at the federal Freedom of Information Act. Thank you. So a lot of times you'll hear, especially like law enforcement, they'll call it a FOIA. But in Georgia, they call it an Open Records request. FOIA is done at the federal level. All right, so why do we need to perform Open Records requests? Well, obviously, if we have questions about how our money is being spent, we can ask for records from our financial department. You know, if we want to know how many people are employed with our commission, you know, or what are their salaries? Like, that's a good one, right? Like, let's say that you are doing an independent audit. You can do open records requests for police reports. You can do open records requests for, oh, here's a good one, and here's one that Russ does quite often. You can do open records requests for it's called a post record. So if you have an officer, whether through the sheriff's department or the police department, you can request their post record to see if they've been disciplined, what kind of training they have, where they've been employed. So you can do things like that. Now, this is not exclusive. There are other reasons, and I'll go over a few of those too. All right, so purposes for the open records request. Obviously, public and general transparency. Most people don't care about doing open records requests if you don't care about transparency. Accountability. You know, you said something, or a police, like for instance, a police officer takes a report of an accident, but you know that that's not true. You can request the police report for yourself to see what the police officer has said. Did it match up with his body cam, right? So these are some things that you can do for accountability. You can do it as supporting documentation for civil cases, journalistic reporting, suspicious activity, or just to check the truth for yourself. If someone says, oh, well, there's a law that says that you can't do that. Okay, well, what's that law? Can I know that law? Or let me go look up that law. So we always want to make sure that we're looking for evidence. And then, of course, to quell suspicion or civil unrest. You know, a lot of times, those of us who are about government transparency, we're not always liked. A lot of times people think, oh, well, we're just going to be troublemakers. But I will tell you that there are some times where I've done research to actually support the officer or to support the judge or whatever the case is. So it's really just about finding out truth. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. We're not picking sides. We're picking truth. Okay, so 51, 18, 71 et cetera. There are lots of different articles and paragraphs and clauses within this open records statute. It defines what can and cannot be requested, how we can request it, what reasons that information does not have to be returned. It covers the fees for the production. And of course, it doesn't set out a specific fee, but it does talk about that fees are requested, can be requested, and sometimes can be waived. It covers the time required for the response, and we'll go over that as well. And then it covers things like how is it to be returned. Now, there are other things in there as well. I encourage you to go look that up. That way you can get familiar with it, because if you're going to be doing open records requests, you definitely need to know the law. All right, so what can I request? Again, this is not inclusive, but these are just a few things like what I use it for. So public documents such as city meeting agendas, financial information of purchases with city taxpayer money. We have patrol lineups. So if I want to find out if an officer was working at the time of an act or a crime or an accident or whatever, I can request a patrol lineup. It's going to give me who was working. It might even give me their badge number. And that's really helpful too if I need to get body cam. So I can request CAD files, which these are, whenever you make a call into the 911 center, they record a lot of the information that comes in. So of course, the CAD file will actually be the document that just has like, hey, this call happened, this is the address that it came from, this is the dispatching officer, this is the disposition of the call, things like that. All right, so I can request incident reports. All right, so if, in the case of where I was helping Ashley Williams, I was able to request her incident report. So I just put in an open record request to the Columbus Police Department and asked them for the specific incident, and they returned that to me so that I could verify information. I can request internal investigation reports of officer misconduct. Now, this is really important to know that you cannot get information on an active investigation. They may be able to give you a status or a cover sheet of it to let you know that it is pending or in process, but they're not going to be able to give you the specifics of an internal investigation until it has been closed. You can also do this for oaths of office. This is really important because if your elected officials do not have an oath of office, according to the Georgia statute, and it's not filed correctly, then they are technically and legally not allowed to be practicing in their position. So, for instance, in the case of a judge, if a judge does not have an oath of office, it is not on file, and he is rendering judgments or rulings, then they can technically be questioned, legally be questioned, and a lot of their rulings can be thrown out. There's been a lot of cases that have been thrown out. Yes, sir?
And one additional thing, they're not allowed to take any state funds. So any money they may have been paid, they have to pay it back.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad that you did that, because that is, yes, you cannot get paid. So any money that you've been paid, if you're sitting illegally, has to be returned.
Okay, so where I live or where I'm from, we have quite a few people, well, especially two that I know, in that whole judge position. One is a judge and one is another political party. When I called the secretary, when I sent the Secretary of State to request open records for that, they didn't have it. They said contact your local authority. But when I contacted the local authority requesting open records for it, they didn't have it either.
And see, that's where we get into the question that you asked me before. When you realize that someone is committing a crime, what do we do about it?
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna cover that, but I'm gonna cover that a little bit later in here, okay? Yes, sir.
What's SOS?
Secretary of State.
Okay. I was thinking like, help.
Yes, Secretary of State, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, so this last point right here says the oaths of office for public officials from the Secretary of State and probate court. So technically, I keep saying technically, legally, in the statutes, you are supposed to have your oath of office depending on whether you're a judge, whether you are a sheriff, whether, like, there are different places that you may have to have those stored in your courts. For Muscogee County, those are usually in with the probate court. So you just want to check in your county to see where those would be stored. And I have a little note here. Some probate courts, which I have experienced in Muscogee especially, say that they do not conform to the Open Records Act.
Reus dealt with that too.
Yes, and in that case, I usually just keep documentation of who it was that told me that, and of course I just store it away for the proper time. All right, what can I not request? Okay, so right here, we cannot request anything that is under current investigation. Now, I want to say this lightly because you can request it, and they may give you a cover sheet, they may give you a redacted copy of the incident report, but in most of those cases, they're going to say, hey, this is pending investigation. Like, we're not going to return this. And they'll cite the Georgia Open Records law that tells you that they don't have to do that. Where this can be a little, I would say suspicious for me, is if you have an open investigation, or this is you say that this is like pending a case, but I can't find a case for you, I don't see you docketed anywhere. So like, I have noticed sometimes that they will use this just so they don't have to return information. So, just, you can always ask, right? But they might tell you no. So, yes, sir.
You dealt with Kristen Settlemeyer too, I see.
Yes.
Yeah, I've dealt with her too.
Yeah, so, okay, so what else can I not request? So we went over this before, internal investigation reports that are,
Personal information.
yep. Of course, personal information, absolutely. So you cannot request certain documents from government entities such as the GDI, Department of Driver Services, the Georgia State Patrol. And when I say that you cannot, you can do anything that you want to, but I will tell you that they don't feel obligated to release anything to you, and there's no accountability, because the Attorney General's office is who mediates the open records violations. But I have gotten multiple emails from Kristen Settlemeyer, who is the Assistant Attorney General, and she will tell you straight up, they're our clients. We're not gonna mediate this for you. So if you're wanting to get any kind of relief for your violation, you're most likely gonna have to sue in civil court, you know,
So that's the way to
get an attorney. Like, again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not licensed, I'm a paralegal. Nothing that I say is, you know, I don't want you to rely on it, go do the research for yourself, obviously, but, yeah, this is the part where I have had problems, so. Okay, and then of course, I just have the notation again down here, some courts do not conform to the Open Records Act. So you might get the response that says we don't respond to these, like we don't do this. They will tell you that you're more than welcome to come down there and, you know, go through all of the court records if you want to. But, so just check with your court,
So no accountability.
pretty much.
Judge Rasmussen don't have to perform this.
I have some thoughts about that maybe I could share at the end of this. You have a question?
Yeah, a comment, and it's a late comment, but I wanted you to finish that last segment. Besides the oath of office, there's one other oath that anybody that works for the state, which includes judges, the loyalty oath. You have to have two. You have to have an oath of office and a loyalty oath.
That's a good
Both
point.
of those are mandatory, that if they get paid by the state, they have to have both of them.
Yes, absolutely. That's good. Thank you for bringing that up.
They're paid by the state.
Right, judges, you know, any state employee, all state employees have to have a loyalty oath.
And if you're, this is just a caveat, okay? If you're going to do an oath of office, Open Records Act, in retrospect, okay, this is just something that I learned. Don't ask them to provide it to you. Go down and look for yourself, because what I have seen in the past is what appears to be after the fact creation. You know, I have a stack full of oaths of office for commissioners and board members and council members and a mayor that they signed their oaths of office after Governor Kemp signed the document. So how does he sign it before they actually get put into office?
Right.
So, and then a probate person said in mine and another lady that went in there at the time with me in our company said that they just make copies of them and then fill them out as necessary. Now, we didn't have that on recording at the time, but so, you know, just, I would be, if you're gonna do open records when it comes to oaths of office, I would just go down there and look yourself. All right, so how do I make an open records request? Okay. Some agencies provide an online form, an email address, or a physical mailing address. So for example, if I want to do an open records request through the police department in Columbus, they have an email address. And I personally like email addresses because I have an audit trail, okay? But the coroner in Muscogee County requires you to send your open records request physically by mail, okay? You do have some places, well, I do notice like through the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they have an online form that you fill out. So I do believe that there might have been and may still be an email address, but for the most part, they're still going to put it into their online form and then give you updates on it through that portal. All right, so this is just what I do and what I recommend. When applicable, use your own template, okay? And be as specific as possible. A lot of times, these agencies don't want you poking around, and so if you don't provide specifics, they can just, so for instance, I made a request a little while ago and I asked for some information on a sheriff's deputy. Well, I got his name wrong. Even though I had all of the other information right, I had his name wrong. And because his name was wrong, they said no responsive documents. Okay? So be specific and make sure that you have all of the information that you're requesting. Dates, times, locations if necessary. All right, so in all cases, use a method in which you can track when your open records request is received. This is important because you have a 3-day response time, 3 business days response time, according to the Open Records Act. And it's only once they receive it. And I want you to think about something. If you receive a piece of mail, and let's say you've been on vacation, okay? And now all of a sudden, you come back and someone says, well, you were supposed to respond to me by so-and-so and you didn't. I didn't even know because I wasn't there. So it's a mutual courtesy as well. You want to do that to make sure that you can track when they have received it, because at the point that they receive it is when the clock starts, okay? And the ways that you can do that, again, my preferred method is email. And I use an application that's an extension into Gmail called Streak. It's free, and I'll show you guys about that later, but it gives you a lot of helpful information. It shows you when your email was opened. It shows you how many times it was opened, maybe locations. And now that's not always reliable because we have VPNs, of course, and we have people who have telephone numbers from when they lived in other states. So, but it is helpful. So you can do, if you send things through the mail, I recommend getting certified and then getting a signature receipt as well. I sent a request to Governor Kemp a little while ago for a request for a pardon. And because I have had a lot of experience with Mr. Kemp not getting my mail, I made sure to send a signed signature receipt through the USPS. Now that helps me to know when it was received. It helps me know who signed for it. Now, of course, that's if you get the card back, which I did not, but that's like one out of lots of other cases where I did. So, and then of course, if you use the online form, I recommend attaching a copy of your open records request, if they allow that. If not, I recommend creating a Google Drive folder and making it shareable, putting your attachment in there, and then putting the text of your shareable drive in your description. And that's actually what has helped me with my GBI reports and my FBI reports, because they don't give you a place to upload attachments. So I just include all my attachments in my drive, and then I put the drive in the detail and say, see here for evidence, okay? So those are some good little tips and tricks that you can do. All right, so here is a live example that I did for an open records request. Of course, I redacted, took out some of the information, but we had someone come to us and alleged that the sheriff of Muscogee County had run the license plate of a citizen for a campaign worker that she suspected was doing things with her boyfriend. And so I don't think that they knew at the time that this citizen was a higher up in the Columbus Police Department, But long story short, when the woman got the information back, she went to the chief of police and tried to get the woman fired, and it caused a lot of inconvenience for the police department employee. So the question that was brought to me to research is, can you find out if in fact he did this, okay? Because no matter what my thoughts have been about the sheriff, if I say that I am about truth, we want to make sure that we test for the truth, right? So I was told there was an internal investigations that was done, and so I open record requested that. I had some issues getting that back, so I had to get the attorney general involved, and of course they gave me what I was requesting. And anyway, so this is kind of just an example. I don't know if you guys can see it, but what I do is I kind of have like a template that I run with, and I use the same template. And so one of the things that's important is to always cite the law. If you don't cite the law, they don't necessarily take you that seriously. So what I do is first sentence, under the Georgia Open Records Act, and I cite it, I am requesting an opportunity to inspect or obtain copies of public records. And then I declare what it is that I'm requesting. So I'm requesting records, in this case, that indicate which GCIC authority in Muscogee County ran a tag of a citizen. So I was requesting information that shows who ran that tag through that system, okay? And then you want to include what exactly that you're requesting. So I put number 1, number 2, okay? And then I always put this in here. If there are any fees that are involved that are under $25, I'm asking for a waiver. And most times I will get that waiver. Not necessarily in the case of like body cam evidence, because that takes a lot of time. But usually if it's something that's digitally stored, I don't expect you to charge me a whole lot of money. Like, that's digitally stored, it doesn't take a whole lot. And in most cases, some of the things that I'm asking for, I don't need redactions, so you don't need to spend a whole lot of time redacting anything. But then I go on down here and it says like the Georgia Open Records Act requires a response time of 3 days. So I'm reminding them, I know my laws, that's what I'm asking for, and this is how long you have to give it to me. And then of course, you know, I end up saying I'm doing this in, this is for government transparency, for public knowledge, and then of course respectfully, and I send it on, okay? All right, so what should I expect to happen after I send that, okay? So if the open records request involves a fee, they have to tell you what that fee is and ask you to approve that fee before they produce anything. And just make sure if you're going to approve that fee, that you pay that fee. All right, and so according to the Open Records Act, 3 business days from the receipt of your request is when you should get a response. That doesn't always mean you're gonna get what you're requesting. They may tell you, hey, this is gonna take a little bit more time for us to get to, give us a few more days, but they have to give you some sort of response within 3 business days, okay? That obviously might be a little different if it gets there by mail. So what I would do is include an email with your request to them so that they can send whatever they have to you by email, okay? All right, so if you haven't received an email or if you haven't received a response within that 3 business days, now I will say if I have an email address and I have submitted my open records request by email, I will give a courtesy email to that agency. Hey, I just want to remind you, end of business day 3 days was yesterday, and if you don't give it to me by the end of business, or basically I will say I'm expecting this by the end of business day. I used to kind of say if you don't give it to me, I'm going to report you with the Attorney General, But now I just don't tell them, I just do it. And I think that I set a precedent enough for them that they know. That doesn't always mean that they're still going to oblige me. I might still develop some frustrations and things like that, but for the most part, yes ma'am.
So what does the Attorney General do?
So I'm gonna get into that. They actually mediate the open records violations, okay? So yes, so if there's still no response, see next slide. All right, what if there's a violation of the Open Records Act? Okay, I will tell you that I have had more violations of the Open Records Act than I have not. And let's be real, it's because a lot of the information that I have requested, it doesn't look very well for people. It exposes certain people. And that's not that I'm trying to do that intentionally. It's like, if I'm saying that I'm a truth seeker and I am doing research for someone, I want to make sure that I have my ducks in a row. So, but for whatever reason, if your open records request is violated, then you have the ability to seek redress from the Attorney General's office. I have included the email address on here as point 4, where you can make your complaint, but you can also just do a simple Google search if you need to. What I recommend before you do that is to make sure that you have all of your evidence before you make that complaint. And the main thing that you're gonna want when you make that complaint is a screenshot. They don't allow for you to put in a PDF file or a doc or Word file or whatever. You have to put some sort of a screenshot, whether it's a JPEG or GIF or PNG, okay? So what I do is I usually will take a copy of my open records request and I will save it as a PDF and open it on my main screen so I can see the whole thing, and I'll take a screenshot of that so that they can see, hey, this is the entirety of my screenshot. And then of course, once you make your complaint, and I can show you guys that if we have some time, but once you make your complaint, it will give you Kristen Settlemeyer's email at the end for you to send any other supporting documentation. And so that's where I send all of the rest of the stuff. And I'll show you some of the things that I send and that I encourage you to send if you have to do that, because when you have all of that evidence and it shows, hey, I did this, this shows it's been read, this shows that they responded, this looks like they're being a little evasive, or they're playing some shell games, or look how many people have read this when only 2 people are supposed to read it, right? So that's always helpful. All right, so some things to keep in mind. I think a lot of the reason why we don't have as many independent citizens, journalists, reporters, people who want to hold their government accountable is because it takes gumption. This isn't an easy thing. You know, I have endured a lot of harassment, slander, discomfort. I was chased out of my home. You know, I've had landlords try to constructively evict me, you know, trying to get me fired from my jobs. You know, I mean, it's not an easy line of work, but it is very rewarding if you can stand for it. So some of the things to keep in mind: if you are going to get into doing open records requests, you have to stay your course. You have to sometimes be stern, okay, but try to be as respectful as possible, okay? Even if they're not always respectful with you. And I say that just because I think that at the end of things, I want people to look at my response being because of who I am, not because of who they are, you know? Like, I just feel like that upholds us as being a person of integrity, you know? Know your law and don't waver. Just like Russ was giving you case law, just like he was, you know, showing you the different constitutional laws that protect you as a citizen. learn your constitutional rights. You know, get out there and learn case law. You know, a lot of these judges, especially in Georgia, they don't necessarily care about statute. They'd rather see you give them case law because that's their buddies making rulings. And I'm more inclined to make the same ruling that I know my buddy made. Yeah.
So you just mentioned the word statute. So is there, once you find a violation from the open records request, is there a statute of limitation on when you can file a civil suit on that?
I don't know if there is. I don't know what you're shaking your head. Yes, Robert. Do you know that for sure?
1 year from the violation.
Okay. Yes. And that's really where I was gonna get into that a little bit later, because I think that if you're gonna do that, I would personally recommend getting an attorney who is willing to go toe to toe, because it takes what I call a pit bull, unless you're able to be a pit bull and know enough about the law to do it yourself. Russ, did you have a question?
No, just a comment, if they don't comply with it, sue them.
Right.
Yeah.
Sue them. I mean, I filed another one in Talbot County, so I think Rob's getting ready to file one too against them.
Friday.
Yeah, sue them. It's simple. And that's probably something that maybe something to add to this course in the future, how to draft a basic lawsuit. It's
Yeah.
super simple. It's very simple.
I will tell you from my own personal experience, I don't trust my judges. I have enough experience that no matter what kind of evidence you put in their face, they're not going to give you a good ruling. Again, that's my own experience. Now, I know Russ, he has a little bit of a different outcome for some of his things. And I think a lot of that is just because he has had the video footage, he has a support system, he has the financial resources where I haven't. So a lot of times, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I got into what I do, is because if you're indigent or poor, you're automatically guilty. You know, they're not gonna give you the justice that you're seeking. So, but of course, if you're poor, indigent, it's also very difficult for you to find an attorney. So that's why I think it's important for us to know the laws, because if we know the law, I think that in itself is kind of a protective armor, to where if they see that you know the law, they're probably gonna be less likely to violate you.
So is it hard to find an attorney to file a violation of the Open Records Act?
Yeah, in my opinion, yes, because a lot of people don't wanna to push against the goad, so to speak. They don't wanna do that.
Mine's public, the one I just filed in Talbot County. Pull that one, and that's a good mirror, or the one he's getting ready to file too. It's easy. If you can write a story of fighting them in elementary school, when you do what your story's gonna be about, you do the little spider paragraph thing, you know what I'm talking about? When you write a 5-paragraph basic story, basically what a lawsuit is, pretty much in a nutshell. Just
So maybe you could, cause I know as a paralegal, we can actually publish and we can share templates, without it being an unauthorized practice of law, but maybe that's a template that you could put out there for people to use, if it's been successful for you.
Yeah, it's working.
I will say, just as a caveat, I know this doesn't have anything to do with open records, but just from what we're talking about, I personally liked representing myself. They call it pro se. I liked representing myself because it took out the middleman. I could speak directly to the opposing counsel, whether that's the prosecutor or the civil, attorney. You know, it takes out all that mumbo jumbo, but also, especially in the line of work that I have assisted in, it's very difficult for you to be able to trust a defender, a prosecutor, whatever, to actually defend your rights. Just like what Robert was saying, the number one reason for wrongful incarceration is the defense attorney. And public defenders, they don't get paid a whole lot. A lot of them are required to do certain hours. And they're only gonna do as much as it takes them to make it look like they're actually doing something. Yeah,
No one knows your case better than you.
that is a good point.
No one knows your case better than you do.
All right, so point 3, set calendar reminders for yourself. So if I put in an open records request today, okay, obviously it's Saturday, I can't expect them, even if somebody opens that email, I can't expect to start cataloging that day today. So I want to count 3 business days, and I want to make sure a holiday is not included, and set a calendar reminder for myself. And then I want to make sure I'm gonna follow up with you. That's staying the course, being firm, being accountable. And just remember, if they see they can smooth talk you, ignore you, or see that you miss a court date or miss a specific date, they may not take you seriously. So be consistent in that. And then of course, if they can schmooze their way out of giving you the info you request, they will. I can tell you most of the case, that's why I have to get the Attorney General involved, because if we don't want to give it to you, we'll just say, hey, we don't have to give it to you, or we'll ignore you, or whatever the case. So, all right. I have found, you might find, lots of people that I've spoken to have found a lot of times these agencies like to do what I call playing shell games. We're going to run you around in circles. We're going to ignore you. We're going to tell you it's not available even though it is. Or we're going to say, hey, we'll get back to you in a couple of days, and then they don't. Or they get back to you in a couple of days and say it's going to be a couple more days. It just seems like there's shell games a lot of the times. And a lot of this is just distraction, it's tactics, it's strategy, because they just don't want to give you what you're asking for. So, again, you may have to be stern, but be respectful. It's okay to be earnest about their behavior. Remember, these are your public servants. They serve you, but they're also other human beings. So try to have compassion for them, which I haven't always done, okay? I've learned, but don't be afraid to call them out. Hey, you know that this is not right. You know that this is a violation. And sometimes I will list their crimes. This is theft. Okay. Again, know the law and do not waver. And then, so I have an example here of a response that I made to an open records person. And I basically said, and I can't really see it here on my screen, but, they told me that they had to redact some body cam of an incident that I was requesting. And I was like, why would you be redacting the body cam footage? It's not helpful or transparent if you redact anything. Did you redact anything from Officer Harge's body cam for Chuck Williams? This was a guy for WTVM or WRDL, he's worked for a lot of them, but I'm just basically asking, you didn't redact it for him, why are you redacting it for me, right? Because they're trying to charge me for redacting something that I didn't ask to be redacted. And so, I honestly lost a lot of respect for your agency because your officers in your open records, what does that say? Division play shell games, charge exorbitant fees, cause delays, and again, you treat me as though I am ignorant, stupid, illiterate. Did I put literate there? Anyways, none of us are dumb to what's on that footage. And any of you that continue to cover up for those who are doing what is wrong are complicit and just as guilty. Remove your guilt and your responsibility and do the right thing. So it's okay to be earnest. Remind them, And I will tell you that when I did that, ever since I've dealt with this lady, she has been on point. I don't have any other complaints about this lady. Okay. We are almost done. Final tips and takeaways. Okay. Use Gmail as your email application. Try to email if you can at all. Use Google Street, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And it's going to be able to help you look at some of those things. Accountability is respect. It may not make you liked, but you will set a precedent of being someone that cannot be ignored. I did skip the second point. Sometimes in Gmail, if you have more attachments than it allows you to send, it's gonna ask you to create a Google Drive link. I just recommend you doing that anyway, if it's gonna be a lot of attachments, just so that it keeps everything organized for them. And if you can, organize it. I try to remove a lot of that extra, work that they have to do. All right, keep track of all your documents. Yeah.
You get like 15 gigs free from Google Drive, but just keep in mind if you're doing open records requests, it's gonna be body cam heavy, like a lot of body cam. You may want to upgrade. I think I paid like $2 or $3 a month for 200 gigs, and that's fine. I even filled that nowhere near even halfway filled that.
Yeah, it's not much. It's not much at all. Okay. And of course, don't use any information that you request as blackmail or bribery. No. Okay, so Google Street, this is what I talked about. Okay, so you have to actually go, so if this is on your laptop, if you have a Microsoft laptop, you have to go into the Microsoft store and you have to download the extension. You just type in Streak and it'll bring it up. You see the little icon up here, okay? This is a free service through Gmail. I know Russ has something on his own server because we've talked about this before. But what I do is anytime I send an email, I always make sure that my Streak icon is up there. And if it's not, I can sign in from going to my little profile here. So why this is important is, so over here you can see that I sent that to the CPD, and you see the date that I sent it up here. This here tells me that obviously my open records request was read, okay? There are 2 open records clerks that work in the CPD. So why are 193 people reading my email? Okay? And Sonoya, Georgia, okay? Florida. I've had people in Washington, D.C., Texas, Tampa, like all over the place. So where are all these viewers coming from? Washington, like where are all these viewers coming from? And a lot of times I've gotten my open records request mediated from the Attorney General's because I was able to cite, like there's some kind of conspiracy going on here. You guys aren't giving me what I need and you're passing around my email. Why do 190 people need to read what I'm asking for? I literally asked for any police reports that captured a rendezvous, okay? Because somebody alleged that someone in the sheriff's department was caught after hours in a park doing something he shouldn't be doing with somebody who wasn't his wife in a taxpayer-funded vehicle. I get it. You don't like that that's what I want, but what gives you the right to not give it to me, right? Taxpayer-funded vehicle. You're breaking the law as a law enforcement officer. That's government transparency and accountability. So why do 190 people need to read my email? So this is a very powerful tool, in my opinion.
So what happened with the mediation with the Attorney General, with you?
I can't remember if this is the one that I actually had to get them or if they kind of capitulated and gave me what I was asking. Oh no, this is the one that I actually got the Office of Professional Standards involved in, and I showed him all of the numbers of people who were reading this. He actually ended up going in, giving me what I was requesting. I was able to get the information that I needed, and he didn't charge me anything for it. So it didn't have to go to the Attorney General at this point. All right, any other questions? Let's start over here with you.
On this section, way back when you was talking about how to go about doing an open records request, aren't we allowed to go into a government office and verbally request an open record, and they have to write it down for us in case we're computer illiterate?
Yes.
The case may be.
Yes, and in fact, Russ has covered that before. A lot of times, some of his videos that I've seen are him making verbal in-person requests that they don't want to But I personally like to do it this way because I have an audit trail.
Sure.
I want to say in writing, like, it says in the act that you can provide it orally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think is what it is that you get 2 women, 3 women standing in front of me, and I said, well, according to the Georgia Open Records Act, I can provide it orally. And they just give me a weird look, if you know what I'm talking about. They put their mind in the gutter.
They don't
That's
really
what I
like to
think.
be put on the spot.
That's what I
here.
think, because they give me a weird look.
Like your Upson County video.
Yeah, it's like, but they did. Upson did. I mean, the juvenile court did.
Here's the bad thing about doing it verbally,
Can't
is
sue.
you lose any enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't
It's
sue.
all enforcement.
But now, if you give it verbally, don't they have to write it down and timestamp it and give you a receipt, basically?
Yeah, but you still can't have the enforce, you can't sue, and you don't have any enforcement action behind it.
Okay. So you need to be really selective about what you're asking for.
No, you just have to put it right.
No, I mean, if you're gonna do it orally.
I do it orally just to test.
Yeah,
It's just usually the test. It's to run the test.
yeah.
It's like, hey, are you going to accept my open records request orally like the act says? If you're not, then I know I really don't have grounds to sue, but you know what? Now you're going to be seen by however many people watch this. So now
Yeah.
you're up to prove without a patent.
And you're requesting something you're really not really interested in anyway.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
and then I get that, like, well, why? And I've had that question, like, well, why do you want those records? Because I want to. I have the right to get them. Because no, you can't. I can want whatever I want. I can put a request in for whatever I want. And if it pertains to public records, you have to surrender them. You have to give them to me. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put a reason down why you want it. You can just say, I want A, B, and C. What do you want it for? It don't matter what I want it for. I want it. Doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want with it.
I'd like to address now, in summary, what you were asking about holding them accountable. You know, I have found that sometimes exposure is enough to get them to do what is the right thing, because they don't like being exposed. And sometimes if I am waiting on someone to give me something and they're being evasive, I'll make videos about their evasion.
Sometimes lawsuits are not the answer.
Right.
Sometimes giving it to the court of public opinion
Mm-hmm.
is the answer.
What is that?
Putting the video out, putting the story out,
Okay.
and letting the public scrutinize it. Because the Talbot County arrest, like, I was live. I went live. So that investigator, he arrested me on live television.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I was-
and that shut down, from what I was saying, it shut down the communication systems for like 2 days. The entire country was calling. So it's not necessarily lawsuits, it's putting the information to the public, give it to the court of public opinion.
Okay.
You know,
I would
that's
say
sometimes
this
the best
too.
option.
Yeah, okay, so in furtherance with that, I think it's really important also to understand that a lot of times when you're dealing with these people, you're dealing with ego. And so, like, a lot of these people, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I know how to identify signs, I know how to do research, but they display traits and patterns of narcissism.
Right.
And so one thing that I have learned is narcissists, like everything to them is their reputation.
Right.
As long as they can keep that intact, they're good. That's why they fight so hard to maintain that good appearance. So to expose them to even one person, it breaks down the reputation, and at times it drives them crazy.
So if
I have a badge and a gun. I have a badge and a gun. You are going to do what I say when I tell you to do it, even if it's unlawful, and if you don't do it, I'm going to put you in jail.
So-
Ego.
so-
Basically ego.
So I basically requested open records that show that my family was discriminated against. So the open records, I'm getting close to the statute of limitation of 1 year of that violation. But more importantly, it proved some other crimes that the municipality actually did. And so
Well-
that kind of is a supporting document of the case for my family.
I would say that sometimes in the exposure itself is good, and it is sometimes the relief. Again, I don't put a whole lot of faith in our judicial system to give me any kind of remedy or any kind of recompense for that, and that's unfortunate. But, I will say too, like when you're doing that kind of stuff, try to think outside of the box. Like if you know that you were discriminated against, go see if there's any internal investigation affairs on those officers that are involved. Go check with the Judicial Qualifications Commission and see if there's been any complaints lodged against your judge. You know, look at some of the cases in Peach Court, or you can even get Pacer. Those are free tools that I recommend downloading. You can go look up cases that these judges have ruled on, you know, and try to form a pattern of discrimination that you can also use as well. And what I recommend is if you're going to do exposure on what has happened, try to always ask the question of your audience instead of making statements, so that it absolves you of any kind of slander, libel, or whatever. And also, people like to participate. So if you can ask the questions of your audience, it can make them think. All right, and then my last slide is just with my information. My name is Julia Pierce, Plumline Productions. I have a YouTube, I have TikTok. I am on some other platforms, although I don't really post there much, but I have a lot of exposure pieces that I've done for the council, for the sheriff, for the Columbus Police Department, for the judicial system. I have where I've done some of my advocacy for the gentlemen that have been wrongfully incarcerated in Georgia. So if you feel free to look those up, and if you need some assistance, you know, just reach out to me. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you.
Question or final questions or anything? Feedback? Good? Bad? It was horrible. I didn't learn nothing.
It was overcrowded.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Miss Bell, I'll be in touch with you about the Feed the Kids stuff. That's, yeah, 'cause I'm digging in that as well. Oh, I think we've got everything. Make sure everybody cleans up all their trash, if you got trash.
Absolutely, positively.
So it doesn't give them a.
Oh, one thing I was gonna mention, I forgot, is Gmail and Yahoo is the best to use. I have Proton Mail. A lot of times, it doesn't get through to discovery agencies.
Yeah.
It doesn't get through the firewall.
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna kill this. We're gonna go cold. It was a long stream, a lot of information. We're gonna leave this up. Again, Hogtown News, yeah, Hogtown News on Facebook. I'll get a link up to that. As well. And I think that more and more, and it looks like we're starting to see more and more, you know, citizen journalists of small cities, towns, counties, you know, stand up and start to, you know, hold their government accountable.
Thank you for coming.
And it's really great. It really is. Hope all the information was great and informational.
It was nice to see you.
And until next time, GT,
Are you
going
still
cold.
working for Rivertown?
Yeah, I'm actually stripping the shit off.
Okay, I'm so glad.
And Jen knows that she's, legal.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
I mean, she comes down.